What is going on, everybody? It's me, Purple Haze. It's a Saturday. I don't even remember last time I streamed on a Saturday, but today is a special day. So if you'll remember on the Game Awards towards the end, shout out to Lo-Fi Monk as well as Kubini who came on towards the end there. I said I was going to do a special stream on the weekend for none other than the person you see there in the description. That is the Jack of all trades. And just a little bit here to just introduce him before I bring him on. Jack is like one of the top creators for the now soon to be shut down game X Defiant. We're going to talk a little bit about that, as well as just his gaming journey. And he has a pretty extensive one, so I'm really looking forward to it. Shout out to everybody in chat. Rabalica, I see ya. Crow, I see ya. I think I saw Cowboy early, as well as Joe, as well as Ambi. Thank you all so much for coming. I know it's not my normal time, but we're doing a little bit early just because Jack was in the hurricane. He was in doing all this stuff, but then life gave him a banana. I don't know. It's an analogy. He's going to have to describe it to you later, but, and we're running with it. So with that, without further ado, let me bring on the Jack of all trades. Jack, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
Doing well. Jack, thank you so much for, finding time in your busy schedule to do this. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me on. It's been a long time coming, but yeah, like you said, schedules can be pretty challenging sometimes. So no, the pleasure is all mine. The honor is all mine. Great to be here.
Schedules and hurricanes. If you remember,
two of them specifically, yes.
We had a hurricane and thrown in there. But for the people who may not weren't in the X Defiant community, maybe could you like introduce yourself to them, like just in your own words? Who is the Jack of all trades?
Well, right now I am currently 40, been doing YouTube for 10 years. Formerly a Call of Duty commentator / content creator that after about 6.5 years or so decided to stop. And then after that, I just kind of floated in the YouTube space and just did random stuff. And then lo and behold, they basically announced X Defiant. And once they did that, I started doing commentaries on it, just like I did with Call of Duty. And then basically after that, I just kept going because the interest for the game, personally speaking, was really strong. So I just kept going with it. And then fast forward 1.5 years or so later, here we are today, and been gaming since 1991.
91. We're going to talk about 91 and your gaming journey there. But we ask all the people this question. And so I'm going to ask you this question. All the answers are always unique. Why the Jack of all trades for your gamer tag?
It actually has nothing to do with gaming or even YouTube. It was very, very personal. And, looking back at it, it kind of makes sense. And then it kind of doesn't. I didn't know what I was going to name my YouTube gamer tag / profile. So I thought of something that was kind of personal to me. So I used to teach martial arts. I've done it for about 10 years of my life. And I had learned over the course of my training and over the course of my teaching that, and this is the thing that kind of applies to life as well, it is better to be a jack of all trades rather than just a master of one. So in
Ooh.
other words, what that means is that it is better in life to be good at a whole bunch of things rather than just to be great at just one thing. So yeah.
No, so like in me, like a lot of people don't know this, right? But in the military, do you know what a general officer is?
I know what an officer is.
But do you know like a general? If someone says that's the general, you know what?
Uh, as in the top ranked officer.
Yeah, you know why they're called a general officer?
Please enlighten me.
Because they have general knowledge in everything. And
Okay.
that's what they're called. So they're generalists. But in society, and this is maybe more commentary on society, 'cause society now wants people to be specialists. And the reason I love the term the jack of all trades, you know, um, there's actually a lot of people don't quite know the full saying. It's the jack of all trades, a master of none. And so usually it's always seen as a negative, but
Mhm.
the actual full saying is a jack of all trades, a master of none is most of the times better than a master of one.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
I
so
completely
there you
agree with
go.
that.
There you go. There you go. Jack of all trades. Um, so I think that's super cool that you picked that. Obviously, hey Mayhem, what's going on? Decoy cringe. What's going on? Decoy is another person we need to get on this channel eventually. But with that said, all right, Jack. All right, you told us 40 years old. Tells us what Jack at 7 years old in 1991, your gaming journey began. How?
Okay.
How?
In a very unusual spot. So one day I was always this kid that I always like to go outside and play, but at the same time I always like to chill inside and just watch movies, et cetera, et cetera. So one day my mom comes in my room and she brings in this huge box. And when you're 7, everything is big, right? So she's carrying this big box in there, and I'm like, "What's that?" And she said, "My friends or or our neighbors or something like that said that they think you might like this. So, Dad and I rented this for you, and if you like it, let us know in like a week or 2 weeks, and we'll buy it." And my parents don't know anything about gaming, period. So that's how that got introduced. And I basically said, okay. And in the box was the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and it came with the bundle of Mario, Duck Hunt, and the gun, which was really technologically advanced at the time in 1991,
Still
to where
advanced.
you could point it at the screen at any point in time and shoot, and that's where the shot would go, and that was specifically for Duck Hunt. And fast forward about a week or so later, they asked me if I liked it, and I said, "Oh yeah." And that is pretty much how it began. And then after that, there was basically a snowballing effect of the systems and all the games that would follow, and arcade adventures, and just kind of like this healthy obsession with games. It was always a part of my life because I was always an extroverted introvert ever since I was a kid. Like I could be by myself, be completely fine. But at the same time, I was not antisocial. I liked to go outside and play. I liked recess and all that other stuff. I like communicating with people. But at the same time, whenever I was, by myself in my room or whatnot, I was completely fine. I didn't need, you know, so video games was like a perfect fit for me. And that's pretty much where it began.
Wow. So like I said, I've talked on this channel before about my fascination with the gun from the original NES. I know Crow's explained it, Rosters explained it many, many times. But I still think it'd be phenomenal. Like, why don't we have like a shooting game with the gun like that now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I had to say anything, I mean, uh, Nintendo, for instance, is they move at the beat of their own drum. So Nintendo is very, very wise. They're not perfect, but they're wise. So I wouldn't be surprised if at any point in time in the future, I don't know how soon or how far it's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised that when VR gets to a certain point, they can take Duck Hunt and literally remaster it in a whole other way that involves VR or something similar of that nature. But it has to get to the point to where it's really sophisticated. That's one of the reasons why Microsoft is not doing anything much about VR right now, because the tech is not there with the creativity. Like, we know where we want to be with VR, but the tech is not there yet. We're nowhere anywhere near where we need to be for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the future gamers were actually like in some sort of virtual environment with, like, you know, gloves or these masks that they would wear, and they would actually be doing a lot of these physical things in multiplayer shooters and compete physically. So I think we're going to have, in some point in time in the future, we may have something to where it's like, okay, what kind of gamer are you? Are you what kind of competitor gamer are you? Are you a classic competitor gamer that plays the old-fashioned way with the controller like we do today? Or are you one of those, or are you like, you know, physical, to where it's like you're actually getting there in the suit, you have to be in shape, and you actually have to, you know, literally like a virtual world. Think Tron.
Tron Virtual World. So what I just heard here is Game Awards 2025 biggest announcement is going to be Duck Hunt Remaster.
Wouldn't that be funny? You know what? To be honest, I didn't even watch this year's Game Awards. You know, too many other interesting things IRL, and on top of that,
In real
you know,
life. In real
yeah,
life.
in
Gotta
real
slow it
life,
down for some of these people, you
yeah,
know.
in real life, and then there was and then there's the fact that the Game Awards are kind of like, yeah, no, do I have to say anything? It's like, it's not, you know, some games, with all due respect, shouldn't even be nominated. So in that aspect, I just pretty much stopped watching. I mean, it's nice to be a fan of it and all, but I don't know. It's just, if anything, the biggest reason why you watch the Game Awards is for the new trailers and the new announcements more than anything else, as opposed to the awards. So, so yeah, I think I think at some point in time, we will have something that might be the equivalent of what the Academy Awards are for movies. But even, I'm pretty sure even the biggest movie enthusiasts would have something to say about that, because, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, we all know who really is deserving of what reward. So, I mean, it's it is what it is. So sometimes if I feel like watching, I'll watch it, but I completely missed it this entire year, because, again, the biggest reason being in real life stuff going on, and the fact that I wasn't really that interested in terms of the nominees and stuff like that. So, but I did hear good things about Astrobot and, of course, Black Myth Wukong, which I have not played, but I know you have. But I've heard good things about both of those games, about Astrobot and Black Myth. But hopefully, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure who won, but hopefully, you know, they got some awards out of that, because I hear good things.
Yeah, both of them got awards. Both of them, you know, everybody got a trophy this year.
Good.
We'll dig more into the no, some games aren't even deserving to be nominated. That's a take. You know that?
Yeah. Yeah, let it be a take. It's but at the end of the day, it's an opinion. So if people want to take that a certain way, then that's their choice. But I am going to respectfully speak my opinion, and people can, you know, they can agree to disagree.
Ooh, Crow is also on. No, you have some fans in chat already. Some, if it's a single platformer, shouldn't, or if it's a console or platform exclusive type of game, should not be nominated. Got it. Got it. Okay. I feel it. I feel that. I do. So Jack, it sounds like I know we've talked on your channel, and I wanted to dig into this. You have actually, and this is really, this shows all about the gamer, your gaming journey, your life journey in many cases. For you, your life, your childhood started out as one thing and kind of quickly turned into something else. Meaning you started kind of like a silver spoon type, and then you didn't finish that type. Do you mind talking about
No.
that? Do you
Okay.
mind talking to, like, just like catching us, because I think that's really interesting about your life perspective.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind. At the end of the day, we're all people. So yeah, I was very fortunate to have a lot of, you know, because of my family and my dad's financial success at the time. I was very lucky to basically get a lot of the consoles and stuff like that. Lived a pretty good life. I wasn't a bad kid, but let's just say I was really spoiled, like really spoiled. So fast forward to age 10, dad dies. And when he died, he basically left my family and myself with nothing. So we went from being in a very good place to mom literally scrambling to sell her jewelry to keep us afloat. We lost the house, we lost everything. But my mom, bless her heart, she wanted to make sure that despite these circumstances, that I would have everything that I need. And bless her heart, but bless her soul, she provided as best as she possibly could. But things ended up getting worse financially for myself and my mom. And then in the middle of all that, she met my stepdad, and things just kind of progressed from there. But there was a point in time for about a couple of years, I didn't have a place of my own to stay in. We didn't have our own apartment. We didn't have our own house. So for a period of 2 years, I went through this, what you would call life's basic way of, humbling you, so to speak, basic training, but in life, to appreciate things that you took for granted. And I learned that early on. So from age, I would say just before I turned 12 to about 13 and a half or so, I went through a completely different change in my life. So again, having from everything I ever wanted, when I wanted, et cetera, to, hey, if you're not eating what's on the dinner table, you're going to starve, or, you're going to have to sleep either on the floor or on the couch. Privacy, no longer a thing, you name it. Life completely turned upside down. And with that, it ended up making me not only more appreciative, but it gave me a completely different perspective on life that to this day, I still appreciate and that I've learned ever since. So, and then pretty much after that, we were always pretty much a poor family. And I was always, growing up, I was always helping to provide when I could, at least. And then, but one thing that always stuck by me, except for those 2 years, gaming was barely a part of my life. But after those 2 years, gaming kind of came back into my life as things started to reach more of a normality, so to speak, a more of a level of normality. But it never got to the point to where I ended up being in the same position I was before dad died. I mean, to this day, I still consider myself a poor person. I'm still, thank God, everything I have is a blessing to this day. I certainly could be worse. I have been worse. And I know other people that are in worse positions than I am currently. But it really is a blessing to, like, for instance, before we got on stream, to be able to say, hey, yeah, I decided to take a week off from work just to focus on, trying to enjoy life. That in and of itself is a privilege, because not everybody's able to do that. I wasn't always able to do that. So I completely understand and empathize with people that literally don't have the ability to do that due to life circumstances that they literally can't control. Because the older you get, the more you start to learn that you're not in control as much as you think you are. There's so much that you cannot control, no matter how much you try. So all you can do is your best, and just kind of keep looking forward. Remember the lessons you've learned, but at the same time, you don't want to look back too much, because it can derail you going forward.
No, I love that. Do you know who you don't know it, like maybe you do know it, right? You gave us like life lesson with the jack of all trades earlier. But you also gave us another thing. Do you know there's a Persian poet named Rumi. Did you know, have you ever heard of him?
I cannot say that I'm familiar with that. No.
Okay, so all right. Well, anyway, 13th century Persian poet, not Parisian, Persian, y'all. Persian poet named Rumi. And you said something that's very it's one of my favorite things he says. And he goes, when I was young, I used to think I could change the world. Now that I'm older, I realize I can only change myself. And so that's kind of like you're saying, like you're not in control. Like as you get older, you realize you're not as in control as many things as uh, you realize just more and more that you're just not in control of a lot of things. So I thought that was a pretty interesting parallel that you threw there.
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right about that. He is also absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So maybe we will speaking of the jack of all trades here in 800 years, like we speak of Rumi. Who knows? Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
No. All right. So back to game. So obviously huge, like spin. So like before you were playing NES, you had everything. Like during this time, did you also switch to the Super Nintendo? Like were you a hardcore gamer before this the unfortunately for before your dad's passing?
Oh yeah.
Or
So the way it happened was I ended up getting actually Nintendo wasn't actually my first console, even though I consider it to be my first. It wasn't. The Atari 2600 was, and then later on, Mom walks in with that box, and then obviously I would always go to friends' houses, and then lo and behold, one friend got a Super Nintendo, and I'm like, oh, what's that? And then the next thing you know, because before Dad's passing, we were in a very good financial situation. All I had to do was get good grades in school, put my puppy dog face on, and I would get the Super Nintendo. And then this pattern would repeat for a while. I would get the Super Nintendo. I would get the Sega Genesis. I would get the Sega CD that got attached to that. I would get the 32X that attached to the top of the Genesis. I also had a Game Boy, also known as the Brick. And I would also get a Game Gear, which is a Sega version of that. And it drained
yeah,
your batteries like crazy. And then
6 of them.
fast forward to actually a year after Dad passed away, I was able to snag a Sega Saturn, which not many people had at the time, because here in the United States, that system wasn't very popular, but it was a good system. It was really solid. The Sega Saturn was very solid.
No, the Sega Saturn is some people would consider that one of the most underappreciated systems of all time.
Agreed. I fun fact, I have had every single Sega system.
So let's see. That's you just
The
so the
only
only
one
one
after the only one after that was the Dreamcast.
Sega Dreamcast. Yeah.
Yeah, because as soon as I started working, I remember getting my first job. I was like 16 or something like that. I ended up working, and I saved enough money to be able to get some school clothes, getting ready for the year, and then of course I spend it on games, right? So I see a good deal on a Dreamcast, I get a Dreamcast, and I also get a GameCube. I got both of those. I got a few games for each. And fighting games was in my younger years, up until that point, fighting games were my main area of attraction. So I wanted the Saturn because the fighting games that were on the Saturn were as close as possible to the arcade ports. They sounded just like the arcades, they played like the arcades, and I was all about it.
Well, that's why they created, right? Like the Saturn, like that was the point of it, right? Because they were trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah, Sega obviously was competing with Sony and the PlayStation 1 at the time, and Nintendo was always ahead of everybody else because they were like the first major. Um, so yeah, Sega was just trying to compete. I'm still kind of sad to this day that they never went beyond the Dreamcast, but at the same time I'm also happy because a lot of their franchises are still around today. Like Virtual Fighter is still around, Sonic the
Yeah.
Hedgehog is still around. I would like for them to make a new Nights and Dreams. That would be nice. But the Sega, in terms of them making games, is still a thing, but they just don't make consoles anymore. So I'm glad to see that the franchises survived despite what happened.
Wow. So, and I want to give a shout out to I see Linda Truth came in here. I think I saw Maker earlier. Cowboy, it's just Joe Decoy. PC better than Sega Saturn. Decoy. Decoy's going to be giving us a lot throughout the day. Thank you all for coming by. If you don't, this is special Saturday stream. Jack is usually working during our Thursday stream, so we thought we would do this on a Saturday, and so we've been trying to work this for like 3 months now. And so super excited to bring his gaming journey along, and tell it to y'all as he says it. So you know, I'm not. I know you've maybe have moved away from fighting games, but did you hear Virtual Fighter is having a new entry next year?
I did not. The last Virtual Fighter game that I played was coincidentally on the Saturn, which was Virtual Fighter 2, which is actually was a very big deal back then. But I haven't touched a Virtual Fighter game since that time. But I'm glad that the series has prospered on. Basically, I'll tell you, after Mortal Kombat 9, which came out in 2011, which was a retelling of, at the time, it was a modern retelling of the first three games, which was an amazing game. And Mortal Kombat 9, also known as Mortal Kombat 2011, was probably the last fighting game that I grinded. And then after that, I just kind of slowly but surely moved away from that because I don't know. I mean, I appreciate, and Mortal Kombat will always be my love. It'll always be Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. Those games will always be, near and dear. And I'm always going to keep an eye out in terms of where the franchise is headed, where the story's headed, what the games play like, etc. But after Mortal Kombat 9, I just started naturally losing interest in not in the story and not in the games per se, but in terms of the direction of the way those games went. Not that fighting games just for me didn't give me that same dopamine like they once did. It ended up translating into shooters.
Interesting. So, I think this is an interesting point. Usually, we go through each iteration and generation of console, but I kind of think this is an interesting pivot. Like you're changing as a gamer, so you're a fighting game type, and then you're saying you went from fighting games to shooting games. What do you think changed in fighting games? What do
Well,
you think changed or did not change in fighting games?
okay, well, the thing for me was actually I was always a multi gamer, but for me, the majority of my time would be spent playing fighting games in my younger days, and then I became kind of a play anything type of thing. And then around 2010, 2011, around the Call of Duty Black Ops 1 days, that is when things started to shift. However, back in 2003, Halo caught my interest. So 2003, right after graduating high school, Halo, and then obviously 2004, Halo 2. And that's when the change started to happen because I started falling in love with multiplayer shooters playing against other people. And at first, it all started with a bunch of us guys linking our systems together with the original Xboxes, because this was back a year before Xbox Live came out. So we were linking our systems together once a week. We'd get together and we would play the hell out of Halo Combat Evolved. And then when Halo 2 was over, it was like game over. And then fast forward through Halo Reach, Halo 3, all those games, and then Black Ops 1. And then by the time we got to 2012, around the Halo 4 Black Ops 2 time, then that's when things really started to take over because I fell in love with Black Ops 1, but Black Ops 2 for me sealed the deal. And that was when I was really starting to turn into a Call of Duty fanboy at the time. And that was coincidentally when I got introduced to the YouTube scene because I had no idea previously that there was even a YouTube thing or that there was even a YouTube community. I became exposed to that in 2012.
And first of all, thank you so much, Cowboy, for the super chat. Okay, you epic people, let's get the money train started. Thank you, Cowboy. Thank you to just all y'all for coming by. You all know this is all about the community, and we will be doing a game giveaway here pretty soon. Not this stream, but my favorite game of 2024. I will be doing, like I do every year, giveaway when we do my favorite game countdown later this month. So thank you all thank you, Cowboy. You're always we're one of the the founders of the community, as I like to say. So thank you for that so much. And obviously, yes. So here's a question for you because you mentioned Sega. Were you never into Nintendo?
Oh, I was always into Nintendo.
Well, I guess you did. You say you had the regular, but I find it interesting that you didn't bring up like the Nintendo shooters.
Well, the thing is, because when I was playing Nintendo, I really wasn't playing any shooters, although I'm very well aware of Metroid Prime, which I completely missed, which is completely my fault. But the thing is, I had a Super Nintendo, and then I missed out on the N64 because at that particular time, I'll tell you why. At that particular time, I had a choice between the PlayStation 1 and the N64. I wanted the N64, but peer pressure at the time in 8th grade made me swing over to PlayStation 1. Now, with that being said, I don't regret that because there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, everything was on disc and on CD, and I wanted the sound to be as arcade accurate as possible for third-party systems, specifically with Mortal Kombat 4, because I was still into it at the time. And at the same time, I coincidentally got introduced to different franchises that I otherwise wouldn't have been introduced to. I was already familiar with Nintendo, but I didn't know the Sony side of things, and I was kind of intrigued. And it all started
Of course, you didn't know the Sony side of things. It was the first Sony system.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I didn't know anything, so therefore I was intrigued. And people kept saying good things to me. So I was I was convinced, but I do not regret it because I would not know about so many different games that I know about today if it wasn't for that particular time. Does a part of me wish that I could have an N64 back then to make that decision? Yes, but at the same time, I could only choose one or the other at the time, and I chose PlayStation. And I had a Nintendo GameCube, obviously, but that was the last Nintendo system that I owned up until this day. Although I will say that I am interested in the Switch too. That is probably the last console or the only console that I'm going to get because, I've got a PC now. I've had one for a few years, and I am basically there's no sense in buying another Microsoft console anymore, and there's no sense, with all due respect, buying a PlayStation console anymore because a lot of their greatest hits are going over to Steam. So therefore, PC is the way to go. Plus, you've got the options with the frame rates and or graphics, depending on what you choose. So yeah, PC. Like again, when I bought this PC, it wasn't just for content creation, but I also wanted to be able to game on it as well. So that was something that I told Brayathorn that I wanted when I approached him because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and he was the only one that was doing what he was doing. And basically, I said, okay, this is my budget. This is what I want to do on this thing. Let's put this together. And he put it together. He made it he told me what it was going to do and et cetera, et cetera. And fast forward 2.5 years, here we are today.
Wow. So there you all have it. So it's interesting. The greatest Nintendo system of all time, second greatest Nintendo system, arguably third greatest, one of the greatest consoles of all time. Let's leave it there. You went with the PlayStation 1. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
But if it makes you feel any better, I'm very well aware of the history and success and everything it took to get Mario 64 off the ground. I very much know and understand The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask is underrated. The wrestling games at WCW versus NWO, Revenge, as well as World Tour. Like, I'm aware of the success.
GoldenEye, you're
GoldenEye. If you saw my video of top 10 greatest,
I did. We did. So
it is. I believe it was my number 8, and it's for good reason.
Way off.
Well, respectfully speaking, but the thing is, like, GoldenEye, did what Halo Combat Evolved did like 3 years prior, which is huge. So no, GoldenEye is always going to be a GOAT. Like, basically, if you have a top 10 greatest list, if you really think about it, any one of those games has the potential to be number one. It really depends on perspective. And for people who basically had an N64, I guarantee you that they're going to want GoldenEye placed well above a number 8. And I understand where they're coming from when it comes to that. But, I just tried to put everything in perspective, including my own, of course. And that's how I determined that list. But no, Halo 2, in my eyes, is always going to be number 1 on that list, respectfully speaking.
And we have Decoy. I don't even, Decoy, you, like, how are you even coming up with this? Like, Decoy, did you even play GoldenEye on the N64, or did you emulate GoldenEye on a PC? Be very honest here. Did you play GoldenEye on the N64, Decoy? Like that, that's all I gotta say, Decoy. Look at this guy. Look at what's going on, Jack? These youngsters now.
He loves having fun.
These
Decoy loves having fun. I love his sense of humor. He definitely.
As I was watching rage on Minecraft the other day.
Whenever I stream, he always brings some energy into the chat, and it's all good. It's all good. But I love his sense of humor. I chatted with him for a while now, off and on, and I can see his sense of humor, and I love that. So It's always good to have variations of all sorts of different personalities on stream. I love it. So, and it all comes from a good place of fun. So that's what counts. Above all else, that's what counts.
Oh, look at that. Look at Jack being all diplomatic today, being all like this side and that side. And I understand that other side. I like it. All right. So Toy, hear you. So somehow you've made the transition to PC. You kind of we skipped over some stuff there. I do want to talk about this transition though. So you played Halo, right? The first time you played Halo, you were like, yo, there's something special here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's kept you on this track during the Xbox, really the Xbox heyday. if you think about it,
Mhm.
kind of launched that off. And at this point, you've moved away from fighting games, like slowly but surely. Like you're getting your fix from shooters. And talk to us a little bit, because this part of the fun of the show is like when we can like see ourselves, like you're helping us relive some of our favorite moments. And so talk to us about your favorite shooters during this time frame. Like there's a lot of them that are getting launched, but
Okay.
for the people who haven't seen your top 10, because I know your top 10 is has like a lot of them in this period. Um talk to us.
Okay. It actually starts in a period that we haven't covered yet, that I actually basically talked about it back when I was doing random stuff on YouTube, if that at all. So, the first time I actually got my small taste of love for shooters is after my 6th grade year of middle school. So, my best friend that I grew up with in elementary school ended up moving about a couple of hours away. So, during the summer, I got to see him for a couple of weeks, and his dad had a PC. So his dad ended up having a PC, and he had a couple of games on there. One of them was called Terminal Velocity. It was a space combat game, and we used the joystick, right? However, another game that he had was a first-person shooter, a real first-person shooter called Star Wars Dark Forces. And it was the coolest thing that I had ever seen. I was like, okay, this seems realistic because you see the guy's gun, you get the point. I wanted to play that nonstop. I mean, it wasn't multiplayer, obviously. This was back in 1997, either 96 or 97. So I fell in love with that game. So I obviously didn't have the money or the access to a PC and stuff like that. This was about a year or so before the internet became a thing. And then, so basically, I kind of just, with time, I'd never forget about it, but it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. So fast forward to 2003, when I saw Halo Combat Evolved, it clicked. I was like, okay, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring the PC first-person shooter experience onto console. And when I started playing Halo, it immediately reminded me of Star Wars Dark Forces, but in the year 2003. But on top of that, they also had multiplayer. But obviously, this was before internet. But I was always I was always mid, and then I became like one of the worst players. You know, my friends were getting better than me. I'd only get a chance to play them once a week, and but they would play more often. And I would just, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, But at the end of the day, though, I was having a ton of fun, even though I didn't know how to properly play. But it always gave me the biggest dopamine rush to get in an engagement. And if I lost the engagement, I'd get less dopamine, but I still get dopamine from the engagement. But if I won, I would get so much more dopamine, and I just wanted more of that. But I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So again, it wasn't until after the YouTube scene came around to where I started understanding what I was doing, because I had been exposed to players that knew what they were doing. And I started to see what they were doing, and I would listen to what they would have to say. I would go into their streams. And that's basically how that ended up coming to be. And then I was able to adopt that into my own play style. And I was just able to take advantage of that. And it was really, really rewarding, because it happened during the days of Black Ops 2. And that's when things really just, the floodgates for my love of first person shooters really like opened at its maximum capacity with Black Ops 2, because that's when I understood, like, okay. And ever since then, I apply that same mentality and mindset when it comes to like any first person shooter. And with X
Black Ops
Defiant,
2.
likely.
So what about Black? So some of us, I'll say, with the exception of X Defiant, I'm not a first person shooter, and I know some people in chat are also not first person shooters. So like when we see one, it's like, if you've seen one, you've seen them all. What about it? Black Ops 2 set it apart.
Okay. Well, first of all, the reason why it got so much interest from me is because I loved Black Ops 1. And then when Black Ops 2 came around and they announced all the different changes, the innovations that they did, it just spoke to me greatly, because I was always, like, for instance, the pick 10 system in terms of customizing your classes spoke very loudly to me, because I never used grenades. I never used secondaries. So it's like, okay, I can exchange that for other things in my class. That instantly spoke to me. And plus, I really love the structure of the 3-lane maps in Black Ops 1. So the fact that that was returning was great. There was no last stand this time, or in Black Ops 1, they called it second chance. And it was just overall better. They rewarded you for playing the objective. So that was a big thing because Call of Duty before then wasn't as rewarding for playing the objective. They started doing it in Modern Warfare 3, but Black Ops 2 with the score streak system really like took that to another level.
So let's bring it back even further, right? So like like you got it. Like I know this is elementary. This is pre-K for you. But what is the difference between Modern Warfare and Black Ops? Like, I know these games based upon like sales numbers and stuff like that. That's the only thing I know about these games. But like when you say Call of Duty, like I've seen your streams, I've seen Nightfall and all these other guys, Decoy. Y'all talk about these things like they're intimate lovers of you all. Like, what is Modern Warfare versus Black Ops? Like, I know this from a military perspective. Like, you tell me what's in the black in the army, I know what that means. But what does this mean in a game?
Well, for me personally, when you're looking at the Modern Warfare games compared to Black, is that what you're asking? Like the difference between the Modern Warfare?
Yeah, what is this?
For me, one of the big things is that the structure of the maps is a big standout for me. So with Treyarch, with their Black Ops games, for instance, or even back during the days of World at War, even though I didn't play World at War, but they seem to resemble that. The map the way the maps are designed is a big game changer when it comes to first-person shooters, because it allows for a more competitive setting. And granted, whether you're a rusher or whether you're a more passive player or you're a camper or in between, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, if you play it correctly, if you navigate the map correctly, or if you decide to be in a spot, it has to be done correctly in order for you to succeed. So with Treyarch games and their map layout, which is very similar to how the X-Defiant maps are designed, they allow for a multitude of play styles. They allow for movement to take place. And something for me personally is, safe spaces are something that I personally do not find fun. So Infinity Ward games, for the most part, have always been a little bit more friendly towards safe spaces. In other words, you can be in a spot that's really, really hard to penetrate, and you can just sit there the whole map and just have your sights aimed down and take on targets without any worry whatsoever. Anybody can do that, but that's boring. For me personally, that's boring. For other people, that might be fun, but for me, that's boring.
That's Modern Warfare. That's Modern Warfare.
Yeah, that's more of the Modern Warfare side. Now, Infinity Ward has made some pretty damn good maps over the years with their Modern Warfare franchise, but obviously more recently, Modern Warfare 3, I haven't really played Modern Warfare 3, and 3 is more rusher friendly. I haven't touched a COD. I haven't touched a modern COD since the beginning of Vanguard. So in terms of personal experience past the first few weeks of Vanguard, I don't have much say, but I do see what I see. And Modern Warfare 3, made by Sledgehammer, not Infinity Ward, did a really good job of literally like making it to where not only are they more community friendly, but like when you're looking at, running and gunning, it's more appealing to that. It's a little bit more balanced in compared to being very one-sided. So for me, the biggest thing is that Treyarch maps, those 3-lane maps, really allow for movement, and they reward smart plays as opposed to
3 lanes. Like, yes, 3 like direct lanes.
Yeah, there's three lanes where you can go into. You have your center, you have your left side, you have your right side, like whichever the way as opposed to a map that just has a whole bunch of clutter and random safe spaces. In other words, it's more predictable, which makes it more competitive, which is something that for me is appealing, because not just because, as human beings, we're competitive in nature, but I love the fact that I can get rewarded by properly moving in the right direction and maneuvering the map properly to be able to flank my opponent, to be able to get an angle on my opponent, as opposed to just, okay, let's get in this safe space and wait for my opponent to come around that corner, or to hear them from coming around that corner and just shooting them. Everything, whether you're rushing or whether you're not rushing in a game to where the maps are like a 3-lane map structure with, that allows for movement, everything has an element of risk, whether you're rushing or not. So therefore, your knowledge and your skill plays a bigger role. And that, to me, is more appealing than something like a safe space.
Got it. So, all right. And Decoy's also added some stuff. So safe space, military are Modern Warfare safe spaces. Means you can be in one spot. It's a lot harder to dislodge you from that spot. And so it favors probably campers, if I had to think about it, or passive.
Yeah, that's what they did specifically with Modern Warfare 2019. And the devs said it themselves. They wanted to make the guns more lethal, so therefore less bullets to kill. And they wanted a place, safe spaces for players to hide.
Got it.
And
Got
for
it.
that, and for that, personally, for me, isn't really appealing at all. Especially since they could hear you coming from a mile away, unless you had the dead silence field order. But again, when you look, the way those maps are designed, it's just, it doesn't, it's just not very competitive and very one-sided, which for me is boring, respectfully speaking.
Oh no, I think the way you explained it, and Joe is also, if y'all have not seen, it's just Joe, our resident game developer, um, publishing his game. You can go wishlist it on Steam now. So Joe, thank you for coming by, and please put your link down, Joe, if you can.
Yeah, but I have no problem
Yeah.
talking about all those other games because I have a lot of memories and stuff like that. And I know that the audience that's in the stream right now the majority of them are probably not FPS fans. So, we can always come back to this subject, but
I'm learning. I'm learning.
right.
That's why I'm asking the
Okay.
question,
Yeah.
right? So I'm learning.
Ask it all. Ask it all.
That's
Let it
why
out.
I'm asking, because right, I was put my 347 hours into X Defiant, as the PlayStation thing told me this week. And so I would always watch you all talk about these different first person shooters. And I'm just like, I don't know, I just like the game, you know.
That's all it takes. That's
Yeah,
what I try to tell
yeah.
people. If you enjoy the game, so that's what happened with me. Like I just liked the game, whether it was Halo or Call of Duty. Like I liked the game, and that's what initially made me want to get better at it, and that's what made me like do the research and everything else and stuff like that. Which is coincidentally what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could go back, I mean, even to this day, like I would love to talk to some of the commentators that I watched when I first started watching. Like, I would love to talk to an Excaliburs. I would love to talk to a Sandy Ravage. I would love to talk to some of these guys, Pwn Stars, the Mark of J. I would love to talk to some of these guys because I was that person who didn't know what they were doing in an FPS, and I would watch their stuff and I'd be like, how in the hell are they doing this? How are they not getting shot in the back? How are they not dying? How do they know? I don't know. I believed any BS that was spread online. I'm like, yeah, this makes sense because I get shot in the back all the time. But no, that wasn't the case at all. These guys just knew then what I know now. And if you look at all those guys, to go even further, all those guys that I just mentioned, all of them have PC backgrounds. Before they were even playing console shooters, all of those gentlemen right there, I'm not sure about the Marker J. I'm pretty sure, yes, but all those other guys, they have PC backgrounds. I know for a fact that Sandy played PC. I know for a fact that XCal played PC,
So
specifically Battlefield.
what is that? What does that offer someone who has a PC background versus a non-PC background? What does
Because PC multiplayer shooters existed for a long time before they came to console. In PC, that started in the late 90s. So you're talking about games like Battlefield 1942. You're talking about games like Quake 3 Arena, et cetera, et cetera. So all of those things are literally the precursors of what, let's say, a Call of Duty or an X Defiant is, because Call of Duty and X Defiant actually run on a Quake Arena, on a Quake engine at their core. So all of those were precursors of what you see in Quake, Unreal Tournament. So those guys that played games like that before they even came to console, they knew how, like, let's say, spawns would work. They knew what gunfights were like. They knew this. Like, for instance, let me tell you an interesting fact. Pwn Stars, before he got his PC, he was playing Quake against PC players on the Dreamcast, okay, using a controller, but there was no option for aim assist. You fast forward, you imagine facing mouse and keyboard players without aim assist. You're just asking to get your ass handed to you. So he did that back in the old days. And lo and behold, when he played Call of Duty on console, it makes complete sense that he was the absolute monster that he was, because he had challenged himself at a severe disadvantage back then. So all of a sudden, when it became modern, it was like nothing to him. Everybody had to have years to catch up to where he was at, just to give an example. So all those guys were ahead of where we were. So that works.
Got it. So they're not just cheating. There's actually
No. All of these people that I mentioned on that list, to my knowledge, and I've been watching them for years, are very clean. Especially the one that I know 100,000% sure that's not cheating is XCal and Sandy. I know those two are not cheating for sure. Pwn Stars was accused so much, but he's been doing it for so long, it would have been apparent by now, and he doesn't. I know for a fact those three don't. Marka J, I doubt it, but I don't think so. You know,
So what do you think? But all right, so I totally hear you on this, right? I totally hear you that, right? You have PC gamers back in the 90s playing games like Quake, I see Doom, people like that. They didn't come to Dreamcast and they were like honing their skills before there was like any type of game assistance. Then so when the game gets towards they're awesome, right? But now you see players, and I know we're kind of jumping back and forth, but I want to get your opinion on this. You see players like you've seen the statistics. You see a ton of players cheating, right? That, or at least that's what we're led to believe. Or are you saying that that's not true either?
Oh no, I see a lot of players cheating. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. Yes, it is sad that the amount of cheaters that we have today. But there's also a part of me that says it was always like this. And I'm going to tell you why. During the Halo 2 days, for those people that had the standby button for their router, would often use that in order to gain themselves an advantage and make everybody else lock in multiplayer matches where they were getting kills. And it was something that was happening very noticeably. And this was before the internet got to where it is today, right? It wasn't as common back then, but yet it was happening quite substantially. So even back then, even though gaming was in a different spot back then, if people had the opportunity to cheat, a lot of them would do it. Not all of them would do it, but a substantial amount of them would do it. They would, back then we would run into people that would be standby. So even back then, it was common. I can't compare generations in terms of the statistics of how common it is. I wouldn't be surprised if this generation was even more common because of how far the internet has come and how it's become common knowledge to learn how to cheat. So ultimately it just turns into, like where you stand, like, and the thing is the reality of things is that most people just don't care. They just want to do what they want to do. And that's it. Especially since there's no punishment for it, like no legit punishment for it. If they get banned, guess what? They make another account, they come back. So I can't tell if I've ever run into a cheater next Defiant, but when I do, every single time I get a kill on somebody who I think there might be a possibility that they're cheating, I get an extra dopamine rush out of that. So it's like, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. There's, unless they do something serious about it, I don't think anything is ever going to be done about it because unfortunately, a player that cheats is still somebody who's playing the game. And as long as the company still wants you to play the game, as long as they continue to profit off of that, I don't think there's anything that's going to be done about it. And I don't want to be a negative Nancy at all, but that's just,
no, obviously
the old
you're
saying.
still playing the game. Obviously, first person shooters are the number one played genre for paid games.
Yeah, XDefiant, I will say this, XDefiant is very likely going to be my last. When the servers go down, that is the last first-person shooter, multiplayer shooter that I am going to touch. Unless there's either another multiplayer game that gains my interest that substantially has like an organic matchmaking experience. If the matchmaking experience is organic, and if the game obviously appeals to me from a gameplay perspective, then I'd give it a try. But XDefiant, when that one goes down, it is likely going to be my very last multiplayer game that I touch.
So let's switch to XDefiant. Like I would tell my audience, and I think I only streamed it one time, and it was at the end of one of my playthroughs that I went into XDefiant and I played it. And for them, because I don't think, with maybe the exception of like if he's out there, Internet of Games, who would see me online, or Ambi, who I would team up with sometimes, no one actually saw me play the game. But what about it for X Defiant was so amazing for you, right? Like,
Yeah, apart from the obvious, which is the organic matchmaking experience, apart from this, that's a whole other rabbit hole. But
oh yeah, we're
ap-
gonna talk about that because I got into a serious argument with someone in our community in the community here called
so
Rudix about that.
apart from that, I really love the way that number one, it's a classic arcade arena shooter, kind of like what COD used to be, with some of the bells and whistles of today. But the big thing for me that stood out about X Defiant is the fact that it allowed you to control your strafe midair briefly. Like when you would jump, you could control your strafe midair. So let's say
Talk
if I
about
were
what is
to,
a strafe? What is a strafe?
a strafe is when you move from left to right. So let's say you have your sights aimed down, you move from left to right. But even if you don't have your sights aimed down, you can still move from left to right. Basically, it's your left stick movement.
Okay.
In most first-person shooters, once you jump in a certain direction, you have no choice but to go in that direction. But briefly for X Defiant, you can change that direction in order to, go back into cover or to acquire your target more efficiently midair. And I really love that. It's like having advanced movement without having advanced movement. Or should I say, without having jetpacks, but it's not as, exacerbated as a jetpack would be. So I love that movement because I love movement in shooters in general. I always have. So that little change that they allow you to do is something that I really appreciate, and it makes the difference for me. I'm able to really take advantage of acquiring my target efficiently while I'm in midair in situations that call for it.
Interesting. All right, so it had better movement, and
I,
that's
I
what.
like I like the movement. I don't know if better is the term to justify it, but it allowed you to do that one thing that most shooters do not allow, because better is subjective. Because again, when you're talking about movement in terms of what you can and cannot do, there's obviously other games that allow you to do more. And we're not just talking current games, but we're talking about games of the past as well. So for me, for a boots on the ground game, even though some people would say it's not a boots on the ground game because of what they allow you to do with that jump, for a boots on the ground game, it gives you one little bit of something that most other shooters do not. And for me, it's a game changer. And I like it quite a bit. It took a while to get used to, but once I did, it's been very rewarding. And the thing is, it's actually easy to learn. A lot of people don't think that. It's not that difficult at all. It just takes some practice, like anything else. You practice, you get it down, and then once you do, you develop an appreciation for it, and then you start using it. And then when you start using it, it works out towards you, and you're like, okay, it's a great feeling.
Interesting. So I always heard people talking about or strafing. Obviously, I it's not something I learned. I just like to run around and shoot things. Uh, and probably maybe I would if it was still alive. I guess it is still alive, but it's kind of always heartbreak for me to go into the game. So you have movement is a thing, but you also mentioned something about organic matchmaking. And that, if I'm not mistaken, is what people would call skill-based matchmaking, or no?
No, organic matchmaking is
Or
okay.
opposite of
So
skill-based matchmaking.
I'm going to explain the different matchmaking so that way everybody understands.
Okay.
Okay, so what I mean by organic matchmaking is when the players are found in the lobby. Let's say you have a 6v6.
Okay.
The players in the lobby are found based off of connection. So that way everybody has the best connection possible.
Okay.
So skill has nothing to do in terms of finding the players to put in your lobby.
Okay.
And then what XDefine does on top of that, so that way bad players are not like, let's say, getting bombarded on left and right. What it does after that is the game knows every single person's skill level. So what it does is it balances the lobbies to where the total skill of both teams is about as even as possible. So like, let's say my skill rating is about a 3,500 right now in X Defiant. If my skill rating is a 3,500, right? And let's say everybody else's skill rating is between a 1 and a 2,000. What it's going to do, it's going to make sure that both teams have the same total of skill rating. So therefore, that it's called team balancing. So I'm going to have the worst players on my team because the game thinks I'm that good. according to my skill rating. And the better players, or average to above average players, are going to all be on the other team. So that way it's mathematically speaking an even, as close to as even as a competitive as it can be, without, without adding in some of the other things that we're going to talk about. So that's what X Defiant does. That's ping is king. Connection first, then lobby balancing, or team balancing, excuse me, and then you play, right? Okay, that's what an organic matchmaking system is. Now, when you're talking about skill-based matchmaking, now, if you say anything about skill-based matchmaking to anybody who's a casual player, it makes sense. It's like, okay, all skilled players, you play against other people of your own skill level. Now, I understand that, and I have no problem with that. But what people are arguing about today and what people are complaining about today is engagement optimized matchmaking, but it's referred to as skill-based matchmaking because it is a more commonly, it's more commonly known to be called skill-based matchmaking. Now, I'll tell you, if it was a legit skill-based matchmaking system to where it was done like, let's say, the old Halo 2 or Halo 3 days, to where it was like a ranked system, but slightly less strict, because in pubs, they would make it slightly less strict, but it would be pretty much even Steven. It would be like people around your skill level, you'd be playing, everybody in the lobby would be around the same skill level. That wouldn't be nearly of a big of a problem, but that's not exactly what's happening today. It's a little bit deeper than that. It's all about keeping players playing for as long as possible. And that's what engagement optimized matchmaking is. So it really manipulates, it's a manipulative system. So go ahead.
So if I can, all right. So you have organic based matchmaking or organic matchmaking, which you're saying is something where the game is naturally just pulling people together. It's doing some balancing of the team, right, as well as the connections to make the match somewhat balanced. But that it's more organic. It's like, here's everybody who's in the lobbies.
Yeah. A lot of people, including, I see what Decoy's saying here, because he doesn't like the team balancing, right? Like, if it was like, again, the team balancing obviously is kind of like, how do I put this? Back in the day, let me put it to you this way. Back in the day, right, there was no team balancing. It was just ping is king, and whatever combination of teams would be there. So, you could still have the worst players on one team and better players on the other team, and they would just absolutely stomp the other team. Like, that's how it used to be back in the very start of things, right? So there was no team balancing. But X Defiant does do team balancing, so therefore some people won't call it organic. And I can see where they come from with that, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I understand why it's there. I don't mind carrying bad players. I used to be a bad player. I mean, sometimes in order for us to win, I have to score 50 kills or more in a team deathmatch to get a win.
By the way, you just did that, Jack. Don't act like you always have to do it. You just did that and you lost.
Yeah. So, but I don't mind that. It doesn't bother me, because I understand that I used to be there once and I get it. However, I am also against people having their hands held. But at the same time, if somebody, could use a little bit of, like, for instance, what they're trying to do is when it comes to team balancing, they're trying to stop players from, like, really bad players from getting overly crapped on. And it's because they're going to quit very easily.
Right.
And that's where the problem is. And that's the problem with the team balancing that a lot of people have a problem with. And at the same time, there's players out there that just, they have to really, really carry hard to get that win. And that's the problem. But I don't have as much of a problem with it, because at the end of the day, it's a game. And my experience is not really being manipulated. So I don't really have a problem with that. If I have a bad game, I have a bad game, but there's no manipulation going on. So that's pretty much as close to organic as you can get in this day and age, over the last 6 years, especially. So I'll take team balancing over engagement optimized matchmaking any day, but like, it's as close to organic as you can get, but I still refer to it as organic, because at the same time, it's almost like a necessary evil for team balancing. It's kind of like, how do I put this? It's kind of like LeBron James and 4 middle schoolers on one team versus a team of high schoolers. to kind of balance things out. LeBron is having to carry the middle schoolers, right? And then you got, seniors in high school all on the other team. So if you can see, there's sort of a kind of a balance thing there, but there's still some BS there, and that's what some players have a problem with. It is here, and he does have a point. He says team balancing is just an alternative to skill-based matchmaking, different methods, but roughly the same outcome. I don't fully agree with the whole same outcome thing, but I do believe that it is kind of a different method. But again, if I am playing the way I'm playing in X Defiant, and then there's what's being implemented in modern games today, to where it's like, that's designed to keep every person at the same statistic. In other words, what the system today is trying to do is trying to keep everybody at a 1, regardless of how good you are, right? And it does that by any means necessary. Okay, so that's basically the way that system is designed now, and it really does. It punishes the best players the most, because they're the ones that feel it the most. And then let's not mention the fact that the ping goes up the wazoo. You've got connection issues and stuff like that. Even more to it than that. But trust me, this podcast would not be long enough in order to go over everything. Plus, everybody's not going to believe everything that is being said or that is being experienced. Everybody has a vast different level of experiences. So they're going to go with what they've experienced. So they have no reason to believe me. They have no reason to believe any other YouTuber or even content creator, or even non-content creator that just goes into comments and explains their experiences, or what people on Reddit have to say, or what Blame Truth has to say, or any stuff like that. Like, everybody's going to say what they experience in, and it's going to be, it's constantly this circle. It's kind of like a dog chasing its own tail. It is what it is. So that's one of the reasons why I don't talk about it that much, because, no matter what you say, one way or another, you're going to be, a dumbass. So it's like, okay, call me a dumbass, but this is my experience. This is all my 10 years, all my many years of gaming. And again, I'm not, I've been playing these kind of games forever, and I can tell when something is off. And again, that's why I put certain games down. And that's why, I'm going to leave the scene come X Defiant as far as multiplayer shooters are concerned. So I just again, team balancing, as Decoy said, it is what it is. But it's the lesser of two evils, and it's the matchmaking system is still based off of ping is king.
So this is interesting, right? Because the reason I asked this question, reason I'm digging into this, and I don't think he's in chat right now, but Rudigs, who's part of, so if you didn't know, Jack, like a lot of the community that I'm part of, or originally was a part of, was like the cloud gaming community, Stadia, right? And so say what you want about Stadia, but that's what brought us. That's really where the birth of this channel came from. And Rudik's one of the people who's very much beloved member of the community. He and I got in an argument about a week ago about this. When X Defiant announced that they were shutting down, which we're going to talk here in a second. He said it died because there was no skill-based matchmaking. And what he's saying is like that X Defiant did not have any, what you would call, engagement matchmaking. But I think what you would say is, no, it did, but it was team balancing, right? It didn't have.
Yeah, it didn't. When it found your lobbies, it didn't take skill into consideration. It would take your location, which is you want to get the closest players as you possibly can, and then you create the lobby that way. And then after that, it would balance the lobbies. But the way some other players would combat that was they would team up. That's why teams would get super easy lobbies, which is one of the reasons why I didn't play with anybody on stream, because I'm like, I do not want people to quit out of this lobby.
Got it. Because if you're on a team, you're just going to dominate the other team, the other side.
Yeah, and they're going to end up quitting mid lobby.
Wow, and that's no fun.
No, because with X Defiant, it's even before the player count was this low. It was still tough for the game to find other players to come in and fill those slots.
Interesting. So we're saying that but all right. So what do you think about Decoy's most recent comment?
His most recent comment: skill-based matchmaking is good for 90% of players. Only the vocal 10% hate it. I think we're a little bit higher than 10%, But of course we hate it because of what it is and what it does. And we never really needed it to get to this point. It never really needed to get to this point. Call of Duty got to this point without it. Halo, got to the point that it was without it. Even when they introduced their system, but it was completely different in terms of how it worked in social, but it was there, but it wasn't like it is what we currently are experiencing. No way. So what else we got here? So
now, Mayhem, if you're part, like,
and
that's why we brought, this is what makes the channel. This is what
the majority of players, just like a lot of people that cheat, don't care. The majority of players also don't care. A lot of them are also not aware, although there has been thanks to social media and YouTube, there has been an increasing amount of casual players that are aware of it and stuff like that. But most people don't even know what's going on. And at the end of the day, it's there to keep players playing longer. So that way there's an increase of chance for them to spend money in the store. And obviously, if you play a game longer, you're also going to, just help the game. They want player numbers. They make profits off of it. So.
Interesting. I would actually say you do sometimes mix high schoolers with middle schoolers. So I will say this. I'm not trying to fight decoy, but I do want to say this. So I was, if y'all know, like, I was a tennis player growing up, and there's a point to where if you have to, if you're good, they don't put you with your age group anymore. They move you up, and if you're really, really good, like when I was playing, and your name's Martina Hingis, you're like 15 years old and you win the U.S. Open. So I think like that they do move you up eventually.
Well, here's what I have to say. There are currently professional gamers that are 15 years old that might wipe the floor with me. Despite my experience, there are 15-year-old professional gamers that would wipe the floor with me. So you can't fully compare sports to a casual first-person shooter experience in multiplayer. There are 15-year-old kids that would beat my ass. Guarantee you. So it's a little bit different than that. And let's not forget that when you have an organic matchmaking experience, just like anything else in life, to get better at it. And as time goes on, and actually even since before this generation, like, everybody's been wanting shortcuts. For instance, how many people do you know for years now, right? I'm asking you, Purple. How many people have you known for years now that have been wanting a shortcut to lose weight? Simple. A lot of people have been wanting shortcuts for everything for a long time now. And cleverly, these massive corporations have figured out a way to maximize profits from it in the form of participation trophies. And me, for instance,
wait, what's the participation trophy for losing weight? I'm just curious.
Well, you know what I mean. But the thing is, when you translate that to multiplayer, like, it's basically participation trophies. You know what I mean? So, I am against participation trophies. It's like you gotta really, like, learn and put the time in and get better at something, like pretty much in everything in life, right? You have to put in the time. Like, for instance, if somebody did school and they have this level of education, they have this level of experience of something, they should absolutely be better than me at this particular thing. So it is what it is. So it's the same thing with multiplayer shooters. It's the same thing when you play casual basketball out there on the streets. It's the same thing in anything you do. So it's like, okay, so like, you're going to get better eventually when you start playing more and more of these things like casual basketball or whatever. So, I mean, you're gonna get better eventually. But what happens is people are easy to quit, even ever since the days of our time when we were younger, of our generation. Like, people started quitting easily. And over the course of time, that's turned into a bigger thing. Like, more and more people are easy to quit and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, how do we stop this from happening? Skill-based matchmaking, or also known as engagement optimized matchmaking. And at the same time, how do we maximize profits and keep people playing longer? Oh, same thing. So let's kill two stones with one bird. It makes absolutely sense, And the players that care about it the most are the ones that have worked their butts off to get better, but they're on the receiving end of this system that is what it is. And, different times, and people are okay with it.
So So many things. So I hear what you're saying, Jack. I see what Mayhem's saying. I see what Decoy's saying. I
Yeah.
even see what
No,
Joe.
like nobody, everybody, like at least half of the people or 1/3 of the people in this chat are going to completely disagree with me and call me this, call me that. But it is what it is. This is one of those subjects that is never going to end. It's always going to be a debate. It's never going to end. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. So the way I kind of look at it, so the whole idea about skill-based matchmaking, like I said, I played X Defiant. I just liked it, and I got destroyed at it. Right. The way I look at it in comparing it to like sports as well as chess, the way I look at no skill-based matchmaking, just everybody at it, is the same way I look at an open, right? Or so like a chess Olympiad, or in tennis we have like tennis opens, or it's like an open category. Anybody can play it, right? So me, former, I guess what my highest ranking, amateur, like pretty solid junior player, can play against college player, can play, like, it's an open. And yeah, everybody goes into it, and eventually the top person wins. But I think a game like X Defiant, where, in my opinion, if you want to get some kind of skill-based playing, I always thought of ranked as that.
Yeah,
right?
that's the way it's supposed to be. That's what a true skill-based system is. Yes.
Right. Like that's what ranked is. And so, and sure enough, if you're playing like the lower levels of ranked, it's kind of equivalent to like a decent player, not a decent player. But like a total beginner, I don't know if skill-based matchmaking would help them per se. Like a total beginner casual who just says, I think they're going to be leaving the game anyway.
In the long run, in my opinion, it won't. At least not organically. Like it's not gonna get them better, so to speak. But and the biggest problem right now that ranked has is that there's an influx of cheaters. It's insane.
Well, yeah.
Like in any multiplayer ranking right now, there's so many cheaters in ranked. It's ridiculous. And some games handle it better than others. Like Valorant, for instance, they do a really great job with their anti-cheat. Those guys are really good at what they do. But yeah, ranked is where you do that. And unfortunately, here's the thing about Black Ops 2. They had the most popular game mode in ranked in the beginning, Team Deathmatch. And it was for, the guys that did well in pubs. And if they wanted to try a ranked system in Team Deathmatch, they would do that. So that would make things a little bit more competitive as well. They did that briefly in Black Ops 2, and then I think they took it out. But that was like on a completely different playlist than the competitive playlist. It was apart from the thing. But for people that kind of wanted to get their feet wet and such. But yeah, I mean, in the long run, I mean, the fact is this: if it's an organic matchmaking system, and if you've got players of all different skill levels in the same lobby, any player, whether you're the worst or the best, like, again, you stick to it, you're always going to get better because you have a mix of all these different things that are going on. So it's literally like, again, kind of like that open chess thing. Like and the thing is, if you want to, ultimately at the end of the day, it's like this: if you want to get better and you're willing to put in the effort, you're going to get better. That's the way it is. And an organic matchmaking system allows for that. A system that is not organic, will eventually put the brakes on you, and you're not going to reap the rewards. So, because it wants to statistically keep everybody around the same numbers statistically, regardless of how good or bad you are.
No, I get it. Like I said, I did not realize how much, like, if you had asked me this a year ago, I would have had no idea what any of this meant.
Yeah, nobody knows. The casuals don't know. They don't.
And yeah, and so it wasn't until I started watching the different channels, and just everybody, kind of talking about it, and then talking about how Call of Duty did it, and then people excited about Vanguard, or not Vanguard, but Black Ops versus Modern Warfare. And then, like, I learned a lot over this last year, as far as gaming, like, and I consider myself somewhat, at least a little informed on the gaming from the business side. Like I look at things a lot from that side of things.
Right.
But because first person shooters, like, it just was never my thing, I never really paid attention to it. But to your point, I don't think people. I think that's why X Defiant had a player base, is because they're, even if it's just 10% of players,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That's still a significant number of first person shooter
Yeah.
players, right?
Yeah, I still find lobbies to this day. All I'm doing is streaming the game up until it goes down. That's it, you know. And I still find lobbies. They do take a little bit longer on average, but then once you find a lobby, it seems like the game gets its second wind, and you can still get lobbies. And again, I still see players of all skill levels. I see a lot of noobs. I see people that are in the middle, and I also see other players that are good. Um, I see it all.
So, we kind of mentioned it here and have been talking around it a little bit, but so X Defiant came. It took a lot of us, like I said, it's probably half of my gaming, right under half of my gaming time was spent in X Defiant. Um, similar to the Stadia community, like I said, I started gaming again because of Stadia from Google. A lot of people were saying, "Yo, it's gonna die, it's gonna die." A lot of us were like, "Hey, we're having fun. We don't think it's gonna die." And then all of a sudden, out of like what seemed like nowhere, they canceled it. Right? I feel like X Defiant was in a similar boat. Like, a lot of people were like, "Hey, we like it. We're having fun with it. We're still moving with it. It's not costing you anything to play it." Kind of like Stadia did not cost anybody to technically use it. Um, and then it seemed kind of out of nowhere, they dropped this bomb, right?
Hmm.
What were you doing when they announced that, and how did it make you feel?
I was asleep when they announced it, and I looked at my phone, and I think I wrote something in my comments tab, and then everybody started responding to me like, "Hey, Jack, did you hear the news?" And I'm like, "What?" So I was sleeping. I don't know if I took a nap or if I just woke up that late, but I found out the news after waking up from a nap or from bed or whatever. So yeah, there was always a part of me that thought that that could happen, because in my commentaries, I'd always, well, not always, but whenever I would mention it, it was always a spot in the back of my mind that there was a possibility that the game would go down, because whether people like to admit it or not, the world runs on money. So how the old saying goes, money talks and bullshit walks. And the thing is, if you're not making enough of it, that's not gonna do it. But the thing is also, X Defiant is also, in my opinion, a victim of bad management, and in this case
Yes,
being Ubisoft.
yes,
So they it's clear, like, if the devs, obviously, as Nightfall himself said, everything that those devs that he supposedly talked to, um, we have to take it with a grain of salt, obviously, because it is the internet. But if they were right, X Defiant was rushed a year. So if X Defiant actually came out in, let's see, 5-6 months from now, when it was originally supposed to, if that is true, we would have gotten all the bells and whistles. It would have been a true Call of Duty alternative, right? With its own with the kind of matchmaking system and all the bells and whistles, and a lot of the problems and issues that players are having of why they left would never have been a thing. There would have been tons of things to buy in the store. There would have been a ton more guns. There would have been more maps. We would have had prestige mode. We would have had more features and options and things to do. Ranked would have been better, et cetera, et cetera. Like, more factions to play with, you name it. It would have been like a legitimate, full-on, free-to-play game that had like all the bells and whistles necessary in today's gaming atmosphere to succeed. But the first mistake they made was, well, like, getting it out a year early.
So let me. All right. So we had this same conversation before with Lit Stadia, and I don't care if it was mid. It brought me. It was magic from my point. Decoy. But let's go with that. All right, because a lot of people said, "Yo," when they finally killed Stadia, it was basically the platform. It was basically what they initially promised initially, and so with X Defiant, right? You're like, hey, if they had just waited one more year, it would have been what we wanted. So my question to you is, if you're under pressure, right? Do you try to get something out the door to try to get it to the masses? Or do you wait knowing that it's easier to kill something when you wait? Like what kind of decision do you make?
Like if I was Ubisoft?
Yeah, if you're just the person, hey, Cold Blood, what's going on?
Well, here's the thing. Um, when it comes to one thing I've noticed a lot about executives in gaming today, like the people that make those hard decisions, right? One thing I'm noticing is that a lot of these people are people that some of them weren't even gamers, some of them were never developers. They're just put in their position because they can guarantee that the company will make as much money as possible, right? See, what Nintendo has done, for instance, that's really good. A lot of their higher up executives were former game devs that worked on games like Mario 64. So when Mario 64 came out, right, the game actually was supposed to release with even more content than it had. As a matter of fact, twice as much. And I know this because I've seen videos on it, and it's true. Mario 64
he
was
knows it
supposed to
because
be
the internet told him, y'all. That's how he knows it.
So, and it anyway. Going back to
He's like,
going back to that.
Go ahead.
Going back to that though, no, but there's been research done on this. So they were behind on schedule, but because the executive, who was a former game dev, said, he basically talked to the developers and they said, hey, we need extra time. It's not ready yet. But once he looked at that game and what that game could possibly be, the time was granted. Nowadays, it's like the industry has just gotten more and more greedy. And what's happening is the industry has gotten so greedy that it's ruining art, in my opinion. Games back during the golden age of games, so to speak, right? The quote unquote golden age, it was like classic business. It's like, okay, we're going to create the best product possible. And the better the product is, the more money it makes. Now it's like, we know we can get away with something that's half baked because history says that it's possible. So we're going to attempt to do that. So a lot of companies are doing that. They're following the money as opposed to following the creative process. So, and there's a lot of impatience that come when you're greedy, and when you care about the money, or whether it's pressure, whatever it is. When money comes into the forefront, it could work for you if you have the right mindset, but if you're greedy and it gets out of control, you've got a problem. But also, let's not mention the fact that Ubisoft financially is struggling as well. That's another thing. But that's in my eyes, in terms of morality, even though morality doesn't mean anything on the internet, apparently, in terms of morality, like the game should have been given the due diligence of letting the creators do what they do and create and release the game when it was initially supposed to release, and with marketing, because not only did they rush it, but the marketing was non-existent. So,
I made a video, or I did a live stream about a week and a half ago, randomly for my members, called "A Gaming Crisis Is Here," right? And it kind of talks about something similar, right? Which is that right now gaming has, and I get it, it's a business, but gaming has become more about, and I want to push back against myself for saying that, right? Gaming is about fun, right? We've mixed business elements into that. And so there is a
for us it's about fun, in my opinion.
But I think that's the whole thing. Like I think that's where my whole thing, like, fun is not necessarily inclusive of business, and business is not necessarily inclusive of fun. Like, right, when you merge them, there's something, to your point, super awesome that can happen. But at the same time, and I think we say fun in art, in gaming, whatever you want to say about that. Again, that's not necessarily making money, right? And so here's a question for you, right? And we're going to come back to this. But I want to see how you answer this. Do you think gaming would be where it is? And I don't want to define where gaming currently is, right? Because that's kind of an open-ended idea. But do you think it would be where it is if it had still maintained its like niche status within technology? Meaning this, like, there was a time, like right now, the gaming industry in itself is larger than the TV, music, and movie industry combined, right? We can measure this. There's more money in gaming than those three, as well as the book industry. All of that gaming is still larger. But that was not the case at one time. One time gaming was like a fraction of that. Do you think gaming would be where it is today if it had not went mainstream in the business world?
I'm mixed on this answer. I want to say yes and no. And the reason is because of the internet and social media. If internet and social media, and if that hadn't come around, if you're talking about internet and social media in terms of how it ended up being to where it is today, it's evolved. So therefore, gaming itself kind of had to keep up in order for it to be where it is today. But at the same time, in order for that to even be a thing, it had to have a foundation. So in my eyes, when you're just talking about me, the person, I always believe that you have to have a strong foundation. The foundation is everything. If the foundation gets ruined, you're going to have a domino effect and everything goes to shit. But it all really and it also is a matter of a point of view, because everybody's got different points of views that, particularly like in terms of generations. Like if you look at generations have their own point of view and they have their own opinions, and rightfully so, because that's what they know. And at the same time, we know what we know. You know what I mean? So there's a very interesting subject to have at that. It's not, I would like to say that's, for me, it's like at the end of the day, you either have your foundation, and if you don't, or if you don't, you either you do or you don't. So, it's a very, very deep question, and it's going to take a lot longer than just a few seconds to fully answer, because it's one that you really have to think about, because gaming has so much history behind it, and there's been so much that has happened from start to where we are now. But at the end of the day, if that foundation gets ruined, then it's only a matter of time before everything goes downhill. So, in my eyes, but that not everybody's going to see eye to eye with that, and that's because of generations. That's what I think.
So interesting. So I want to, because Decoy's bringing up some great points, Joe's bringing up some great points, you're bringing up some great points, and there's some great points popping up in my mind. Here's a question for you, Jack, because here's where it gets interesting, right? We've talked about your journey, we talked about your expertise in gaming, but here's where we get to actually understand your point of view, right? This is where you create knowledge. All right. What is gaming to you? You use the term art, right? I use the term fun.
Mm-hmm.
Decoys use the term some type of business thing, right? Joe's kind of split on the fence to make it seem like when live services when it went bad, but it wasn't. What is gaming to you?
An escape. To me, gaming is a fun escape and a very good distraction from the regular bullshits that life throws your way.
Okay, so and what is going on? You have Mystic Fragments as your name. I can sour blow, Mystic Fragments, y'all. But okay, so if it's an escape, here's a great question: Do people make escapes and have fun? Do people always do that with the intent of making money?
It depends on the person.
I know, but is that a necessity?
No. Like you don't. No, fun. Like, okay, here's where this gets interesting. So, like, we all like to waste time in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's going somewhere, whether it's doing something like fishing, whether it's playing fantasy football, whether it's whatever, right? Just because that something isn't making you money doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad or like a true waste of time. You can't just be worried. You can't have a life where you're just worried about money. You do that too much, I can tell you firsthand, you're on your way to misery. You're on a slow or fast road, depending on your situation, to misery if you're constant about money. Because at the end of the day, do you want to be on your deathbed and thinking of, and what are you going to say? Oh, I wish I made a few more million. No. You're going to say, I wish I spent more time doing the things that I loved, not worrying about what other people think, and just doing me, being me, doing what makes me happy, and not caring about what other people think.
So then in that regard, if that's what you uh yeah, well, hold on. Let me catch Sour Blow up. Sour Blow, this is Jack of all trades. He's one of the top creators of the now dying game X Defiant. Some people would say it was dying when it was born. Some people would say we're all dying when we're born. Different topic. But and we're just it's doing a special session on Saturday, talking about all things his gaming journey, all things X Defiant, all things first person shooters, and now we've gotten to like the heart of the conversation, really about the gaming industry, and coming off the heels of X Defiant, and really kind of diving deep into what Jack thinks is a game, and potentially this question about would the gaming industry be where it's at if it was not if it had remained a niche passion per se. So, did I sum that up right, Jack? You're part of the conversation. I gotta ask you.
Yeah, sounds about right. That was a pretty good
About
outline.
right. So about
It's very
right.
hard to outline, you know, a long conversation. So I'd say that was pretty good.
Solid. Okay. And so if we're talking about gaming and we're talking about not having you don't necessarily need money. So you're kind of going down this road, and it's really interesting. And I'm really glad to have this conversation because you're someone who had a lot of money as a kid. You talked to us about this traumatic experience where your father passes and now you're poor, right? So you've seen both sides of this equation of money. And at the end of the day, you've come to the conclusion that really stability and enjoyment is the ultimate like enjoyment in life.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know the importance of money. You also have to play your cards right if you're in a position to do so. So if you're making it, you have to be wise with the money, but at the same time, you can't really let it out of control. And which includes taking over who you are as a person, because whether it's not spending enough time with your loved ones or whether it's whatever it is, you know, you start putting too much focus on one thing, all those other things are going to suffer. So you have to have a certain level of balance, and it doesn't matter what form that balance is. So whether it's, and it doesn't matter what category it is either. It doesn't matter if it's your diet, it doesn't matter if it's your personal relationships, it doesn't matter if it's whatever it is. You do anything too much, whether it's good or bad, it's not good. You have to have in your life. So, you know, you don't want to tear off balance. You start to get off balance, you're going to fall over.
So do you think the gaming industry is off balance now?
It sure as heck is heading there if it's not already. Yeah. Because, you know, there's been a pattern, you know, because it's becoming too much about one thing, and art is taking a back seat. Art is the foundation.
You didn't mention anything about art though when I asked you
art is art is a form of the creative process. So that is starting to take a back seat for the dollar. In other words, the integrity is starting to get sacrificed for the dollar. So therefore, if that is true, then obviously we have a problem.
So in your mind, you feel like, so right now, gaming is
it's starting. The wheels are turning.
So yeah,
they're turning, and it's only a matter of time before everything starts to get affected. Because if you think about it, you know, it's like people have been following this certain type of trend, and it's only a matter of time before it happens. Now, so far, there are some games that have not fallen to this yet, but we've started to see it in other games before to where that wasn't a thing. So, you know, when you start to take art out of the picture and the creative process and the passion out of the picture, and money becomes the number one thing, you have potentially sacrificed your foundation, in my opinion. And I stand my ground to that, and I don't care if anybody disagrees with me.
No, I love it. I love it because we have obviously decoys in chat causing a mayhem with mayhem.
And I love Decoy. I think he's hilarious. You know, yeah. I think he's you know, he's so. And one thing I like also, I'll say this. One thing I also like about him is that, you know, he's gonna do what he wants to do and what he enjoys doing for his channel and stuff like that. And you know, he's all about it. So
no, I like that. I know, chat. What would you? Can I Let me see. I got to pull up YouTube now. I don't think I can do this from Restream. Let me do this. I want to pull a poll up for people who are listening. I want to do a poll. And I want to ask a question. That's what you do at polls. I know. I get it. I get it. But oh, that's me. Let's do this. Let's create a poll. Let's create a poll. Start a poll. Do you think gaming is headed? Should we use the word crisis, Jack?
Sure. A downfall, crisis, whatever you want to say.
Headed to,
because in my eyes right now, I'm looking at what he's saying. He's saying that AAA gamings are down for sure, and it's true. But if we keep going in this same pattern, it's only a matter of time before those indie games end up getting affected. In my prediction.
So I put up a poll right there. I put up a poll. It should. Oh no, it's something went wrong. Okay, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't do a poll, y'all. Maybe I didn't do a poll. Did I do a poll or did I not do a poll? Let me see this. Did it pop up? I don't know. Yes, it's there. Okay, cool. And we'll look up at the results here soon. Okay. So Jack, this is an interesting question, right? Because I'm kind of testing this logic out, right? Because I think I've said, right, you probably read about it, the gaming crisis of 1983, right?
Sure. No, not really. No,
you don't know anything about the game.
I was born. Very, very little. So I will say that I'm not really as educated as I probably should be on the matter. But at the same time, I will say that I am not myself by any stretch of the imagination a professional gamer for that matter either. So I certainly don't know, certain things. I do know, I have briefly heard about that, but again, that all happened before
your time.
a year before I was born. So
all right.
So I'm not very well educated in that, in terms of the gaming crisis in 1983.
Gaming crisis in 1983. What basically happened at the time was that the market was oversaturated with a lot of games, and especially low quality games. So, right, this is before really Nintendo was a thing. Nintendo was still making games, but was not making consoles at this time. Actually, they did, but not at the mass point worldwide. And you had a lot of different consoles and they were all making basically the same game. So a lot of people think of like Pong, but there was like actually multiple versions of Pong depending on which hardware you bought. There was also like multiple versions of like Pac-Mans and like wannabe Pac-Mans, wannabe like Donkey Kongs. They had all the same type of game, right? And so in 1983, what happened was like the bubble popped. And essentially everybody had flooded the market, had over predicted how many sales of games would happen. And so you had like this reckoning happening. Okay, which was both too many games, too many low quality games, and too many systems, like too many hardware systems. Created a crisis. Eventually, the crisis stops because Nintendo comes away, and that's why we have that little like Nintendo seal of quality, right? In with the Nintendo Entertainment System. What that seal of quality said was like, this meets our seal of approval. And that's why, if you notice, with the exception of Pokemon, there's not too many games that Nintendo launches that are not high quality, because that is really the Nintendo thing. And so it kind of lifted the gaming industry out of this. There's a couple of other reasons why the gaming industry came out of this time, but that's basically the gaming crisis of 1983. The reason I bring this up, right? And I made a whole nother video about this, or another talk about this. The reason I make it up is because if you talk to people who follow gaming, they would say, yes, there was this crisis in 1983. And so if there was this crisis in 1983, and if it's what I just defined it as, we would probably say that in the late 70s and the early 80s, we would also say gaming was in a crisis, right? It was over speculation. True or false? Jack, just from what I've told you, true or false? Are you following?
Repeat the question one more time just to make sure I heard it right.
Just leading up to 1983, if we said that there was over speculation in the gaming industry, what we say that we were kind of in a bubble. So basically saying that potentially leading up to 1983, we were potentially in a bubble and therefore headed towards a crisis. So with that, would you agree leading up to 1983, we were headed to a crisis based upon what I said?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Um, so I actually say we're headed to a crisis now,
Yeah. No,
right?
see that's what I'm saying. Like, um, and I love the chat, by the way. One of my favorite things whenever I stream or whenever I watch your streams, or in this particular case, I love the chat, the interaction, stuff like that. And I'm seeing that like AAA games are kind of like, I see the chat saying AAA games are in a crisis, and maybe double A pending on your definition, things like that. And those are true, but again, if this pattern continues, it's only a matter of time before it leaks onto indie games, because indie games are obviously amazing, right? So it's like, okay, once that becomes the number one, like once they bleed all the money out of the AAA and AA things, what are they going to look to? Oh, wait, we still have our indie games. Let's focus on those. How can we maximize profits on those? So the pattern continues, and that's what I'm thinking in my mind. It's like there's a pattern here. So unless we break that cycle, I mean, in my mind, we're headed there.
Yeah. So the reason I asked you about the gaming crisis in 1983, and this is getting to more or less decoy, Jack, because you're on here, I have you to bounce off of in decoys in chat. There was a crisis in 1983. Gaming industry recognizes said crisis. But similar to what Decoy's saying here, he's like, not every game is doing bad. Would you believe the same time I say there's a gaming crisis, Jack? This is a question to you. The same time I say there's a gaming crisis in 1983, would you know it that there's a certain segment of the gaming industry that is booming at the same amount at the same time?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Would you believe that? Would you believe that? I just said there's a gaming crisis that happens in 1983, but there's also another segment of the gaming industry that is booming in 1983.
I could see that.
All right, yeah, it's true. So let me ask. Joe was probably around during this time, as I was as well. The arcade industry is booming at this time. 1987 or 1977 to 1983 is considered the heyday of arcade gaming, right? And so when anybody says like there's no gaming crisis, and they point to a certain games or certain studios doing well, I always say, well, that doesn't mean that we're not in a crisis now, right? Like in my opinion, what you outlined earlier, Jack, which is this idea that we have now started to profits above all else, profits above fun, profits above innovation, profits above art, would lead me to think that maybe we're having too much, the equation is overly weighted towards one side, right? Which is what you described. True.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's overly, like, how do we get out of this situation?
Break the cycle. But that's the thing.
That?
I don't even, well, that's an answer, but not exactly an answer, because I mean, how that's the thing. I don't want to sound like a negative Nancy, but how do you stop greed? Like, because greed knows no bounds. It's, how are you going to stop a shark from attacking that wounded seal that's bleeding? You know what I mean? It's a very interesting question, and I honestly don't have the answer other than break the cycle. But it's not something that's so simple or easily executed in a world that is literally run by money. And now, I mean, that's one of the things that one of the things I have to say is that, like, I've always admired, like, when you're looking at people personally, I always admired people who, kind of move to the beat of their own drum and stuff like that. But in gaming, what's going on is it's kind of like following the trend. It's like, hey, follow the money. You know what I mean? So the answer is I don't have an answer. I don't know. And I'm pretty sure if I knew that answer, I'd probably be more financially successful. but I don't have the answer. All I know is that from a basic standpoint is break the cycle. So this is a cycle. If you want to put it down to pattern and all that kind of stuff, it's It's a cycle. So if you want something to change, you've got to break that cycle. In
But we
terms of
don't.
how, I'm sorry.
But I guess we don't, right? I think it's like skill-based matchmatching at the end
Well,
of the day.
remember,
Some
we're
people
not.
are saying,
Remember, we're also not in charge. You know what I mean? It's, you
how are
know,
you not in charge?
we're not in charge. The money, the people who have the money are in charge. So things like, obviously money dictates everything. Like if a game bombs, you know, but also we're seeing these corporations that are doubling down on the same mistake that they made previously. And guess what? Now they're losing even more money. So there's this sort of trend going on. And the thing is, like, we just have to break the cycle. It's all money based.
So I think you are
I
breaking the cycle, though.
I don't think, here's the thing though. It's like, how do I put this? Like, okay, like for instance, take a look at Call of Duty, for instance, right? If you don't like Call of Duty, the best effect that you can have on Call of Duty, if you truly want change, is to stop buying their games, stop buying microtransactions, shit like that. But obviously, that's not happening. And part of the reason why is because, well, there's also a lot of people that are running on autopilot, and they're just going to continue to buy the game because it's a lot like Madden. You know, they're going to buy it every year, no matter how crap it is. You know, it's a real thing. It's a scientific thing. It is an addiction, and it is unhealthy. And guess what? Let's put it to you this way. Let me give you the perfect analogy. Every single drug addict deep down inside knows that what they're doing is it's not good for them. They all know it. They're not happy about it. They know it, but they still do it because they're addicted, and they can't help it because it's an addiction. It's very hard to break any mental or physical addiction. Like, I'm pretty sure you've even heard some commentators say, for instance, you know, like, hey, it took me a while, but I managed to stop playing Call of Duty. No matter how good or bad the game is, it's very hard to break that addiction. So if you think about it, it's been something like, for instance, when crack came out, right? When crack came out, it was something that was profitable. So it's like, okay, if you could take something like a mental addiction, like playing Madden, for instance, and find out a way to make it profitable, you've got yourself an unstoppable moneymaker. Simple as that.
So gaming's an addiction.
Oh, we've known that, but the thing is, the question is, how much can you control it? There's a lot of people, especially in today's nowadays. I mean, how often do we look at our phones when we don't need to? Think about that for a second. How often do people look at their phones when they don't need to? You think that is not being scientifically experimented on in order to manipulate and therefore profit financially? Think about that for a second. If they've been looking at our stats all these years, how much people play, how much people spend time doing this, et cetera, all those midnight releases, what people are watching on TV, the things you see on the news, et cetera, if you could find out a way to manipulate that and somehow control it at least a little bit to the point to where it puts money in your pocket, and greed knows no bounds, nobody cares, you know, what happens as long as they get the money, right? So therefore, there you go. Makes sense, right?
So then I think the way you break the cycle, right, is maybe the way you're going to break the cycle of you playing first person shooters, which is what? Remind us again what you're going to do after X
I
Defined dies?
am, well, after X Define is done, if I decide to continue with content creation, I am going to be doing like playing a whole bunch of different games on my second channel, or I'll just put the channel down. And I'll just focus on more IRL stuff. And I'm not going to lie.
In real life. In real life.
Yes. Sorry. In real life stuff. So, and I'm not going to lie. I'm definitely deeply leaning towards the real life stuff, because there's definitely things in real life that I've always wanted to do and that I've always dreamed of that have a possibility of coming true. And that, to me, as a person, you know, not as a content creator, not as the jack of all trades, but me as a person, that's something that you just can't ignore. At the end of the day, we're human beings. We need to be out there touching grass. You know, we need to be out there communicating. We need to be out there, you know, enjoying the things as human beings, as opposed to just focusing on, you know, the technology and the wonders and the escapists of gaming. You have to have balance, as I mentioned previously. So I want to add in more balance in my life. So therefore, that is going to potentially make me happier. as a person. Gaming is always going to be a part of my life. I've been doing it for 30 years, more than 30 years. It's always going to be a part of my life. But in terms of like the amount or how I approach gaming and the other things that I'm introducing into my life, I mean, balance is always something that's, very appealing to me. So, it's
balance.
yeah, it is what it is. The balance is important.
So, and I think that brings us full circle, right, to what your name is, Jack of all trades. You got to be kind of good at everything, not just one thing. So, kind of a balance of everything.
I assure you, I am still learning as I go along. I know very well that there's always going to be something that I'm a white belt at. There's always something that I'm not going to be good at, by anybody. I can learn something from anybody, even if they're younger than me. And I first learned this when I started teaching martial arts. So,
Which martial art, by the way?
Combination of two. Taekwondo was the meat and potatoes, but I also did some Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So I got about total of 14 years experience between the two.
So you're a grappler.
Well, my meat and potatoes is stand up, but yes, I do know the grapple game, and I love it. And that's a chapter that I kind of kept halfway open. In which one?
Well, Taekwondo, I would imagine.
Yeah, I hold a third degree. Yes.
Third degree. So this guy's a third degree. Look at that. Okay. Okay. Nothing.
So it's you learn that you can learn from anybody. You can literally learn anything from anybody. So that's why I approach things with the open-mindedness that I do. It's because I learned it the hard way. And once you learn something the hard way, you can't unlearn it. That's the beauty of learning something the hard way. You can't unlearn it, because once life punches you in the face or, gives you a smack or whatever, it's like, you don't forget that. You never forget it. Nothing hits harder than life.
No, I like that. I like that. Nothing hits harder than life because life will punch you in the face multiple times.
Oh yeah. 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 So it is what it is. And I just love, I find myself, as I'm getting older, I find myself very much attracted to people's mindsets, because everybody has, not only do they have different experiences, but they have different reactions to how they experience things and how they see things. And therefore a person is the way that they are because of how they reacted to a certain thing that life has thrown their way. So, if you think deep enough about it, you really can't, you really shouldn't, judge anybody. You know what I mean? And that's the problem with the internet today. Everybody's pretty much, if somebody plays a character on the internet, people think that they're like that in real life. And in some cases, I'm sure that that's true in some really rare cases, but for the most part, we're all people floating on this planet that, is is very beautiful, but at the same time, there's also a lot of things, going on that, we could do better at, but at the same time, we're all learning at the end of the day. So,
well, I like that. Thank you. Well, Jack, you've given us life lessons. I see you there, Ellis. If y'all had not known, Ellis has over 1,500 hours in PlayStation, and he's not even a PlayStation main. He's an Xbox guy. Look at that. Guys, playing tons of time, tons of hours. Well, Jack, I think we talked about a lot of anything we didn't talk about.
That's on you. If there's anything
No,
we
this is
missed,
your show. This is your shades of purple. It's on you. What have I not asked you that you were like, I want Purple to ask me this? What did I not ask you?
Actually, the entire time I was thinking, I'm wondering what Purple is going to ask me. I don't know. I'm just going with the flow. It's an organic, non-scripted commentary in the form of a live stream, as far as I'm concerned. So, so let it rip. If there's anything, let it rip.
Oh my goodness.
This is where chat can come in too. Like before I end my streams, I try to take an extra, sometimes it goes for as long as an hour because I love talking to chat, but like sometimes at the end of chats, I always say basically, like if there's anything anybody wants to ask or talk about, now's the time before I close the stream. That's usually how I end it.
Let's see if I can do it in his voice. So before I close the stream, if there's anything anybody in the chat wants to ask Jak, now is the time. Before. Did I do that right? I try to give your radio voice over. Try more games, Jak. Why he won't try new games? Stop saying it looks like it's not my type of game. Gaming isn't in a crisis. Ooh, Decoy's coming in
I
and doing
I
exclamation.
love Decoy. I am not interested in third-person multiplayer shooters. I do not want EOMM in my multiplayer shooters. So, the new the Delta Force game, which is like a Battlefield game, has implemented that in there as well. So, and we all know the story with Call of Duty. Halo has its own version. It's, and at the same time, even beyond that, I'm 40 years old. It's like let's just let's just venture out and not play multiplayer anymore. There's always been a part of there's always a part of that, but as far as single player games go, Decoy, I actually bought 8 games that I added to my library on Steam because I took advantage of the sale that they had, and I've also been growing my PlayStation 4 collection, and I'm looking forward to the new Doom game that's going to come out. Let's see what else. Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out, and I'm a sucker for a good Mario, a good Donkey Kong, a good Zelda. A Metroid Prime 4 is something that I have my eyes on. So, and obviously, whenever FromSoft releases a game, you can't go wrong with that. If they make a Remnant 3, I am going to be all over that like white on rice.
What do you know about Remnant, Jak? What do you know about Remnant?
I know Remnant before you knew who I was. So I played Remnant. I played Remnant a lot. Granted, not as much, because I was always, again, even when I don't play multiplayer games, I play like my mind, like what I'm in the mood for can change day to day, kind of like food. So like I will change it up. Like I won't complete a game and then I'll go back to it when I feel like it, but every once in a while, there's that one game that comes out that you absolutely just have to finish from start to finish. You can't stop until it's done, So, but again, with X Defiant, it's been kind of back and forth because, again, X Defiant is only going to be around for 6 more months. I enjoy playing the game. I love the rush that it gives me, the dopamine, et cetera, et cetera. And at the same time, I think it's the last of its kind. I really do. So I'm going to enjoy it and, sing my farewell song to X Defiant as far as multiplayer shooters are concerned, as far as I know. So, I mean, that is always subject to change. Never say never. But at the same time, that's what I'm looking at, So there's other exciting things that are coming that I, for one, am personally interested in my real life as well. So it's good to add balance. It is, because it makes everything more, you appreciate other things more and you enjoy them more, as opposed to the same old routine all the time.
The spider. Oh, Ellis did play it. He hated when the spider jumped on his face. Well, you could have they kind of fixed it. Spider bot. That was a thing back in August. Seems like so long ago. I wish that was X Defiant's only problem nowadays, but it seems like they're about to pull the plug for other reasons. He has layers. Whoa, Decoy, that is ISO saying. Oh, ISO, you got
Jak is like an onion. He has layers. Well, Mr. Decoy, you're not wrong.
That is ISO
and go figure. I actually like onions. I love onions.
Yeah. Well, ISO Motion Gaming, who was in chat earlier, he always says he uses this saying quite a bit. Not with Jak, but with life. He says life is like an onion. Levels of layers to like an onion. There he goes. There he goes, ISO. I was hoping you were still around. There he goes. Official ISO saying levels of layers to this like an onion.
Yeah. Trey Gaming also has a point. When he says, as he's been getting older, he's been going to single player games. Yeah. I feel myself, everything coming full circle and going back to my roots. And again, my roots are, I was always a variety gamer. First person shooters didn't take me completely at the beginning. I was always playing all sorts of different things. I'm still aware because of the times, all the things that kids would talk about in school back during those days, before the internet became even a thing. And now with the internet, it's like, okay, you get to see even more of what you missed. So, I'm a sucker for nostalgia. So they make anything, they remaster anything, especially if I grew up playing it, I'm getting it. You know, like Spyro Remastered, no problem. Oh, by the way, word has it that Spyro 4 is not only made by the guys that made the Spyro Remastered trilogy, Toys for Bob, but it's also said to have open world RPG elements in it, and that got my attention even more. So those are the rumors behind Spyro 4, and I, for one, am all about it. Borderlands 4 is another one. That's another one that caught my eye. So yeah, especially since I need to catch up on 2 and 3, but the thing is with 3, I recently just bought that on the Steam sale. So I'm like, yep, I definitely need to get that. So I have a lot of catching up to do. You know, over the years of playing all these multiplayer first-person shooters, I have a lot of catching up to do with a certain number of games that I wanted to play but didn't. Especially since back in those days, I was a lot more limited on money than what I am now. So
no, I think so I am doing this week coming up, Jack. I'm doing my 18 most looked forward to games for 2025. 18.
that's
I
a
looked
big
over.
list.
Yeah, it's a big list. I looked at over 400 games to create this list, and I
That's
have my
dedication.
18.
That's
Yeah.
dedication.
Well, it's not that hard if you follow the game, if you follow announcements, and over a year. If you think about it, there's 365 days. That just means I averaged like 1.2 a day, which it's not that hard if you think about it. But yeah, I'm getting my top 18 games coming up, and surprising no one actually has said any of them in chat. So I feel like it's gonna be a cool list. 18 plus one bonus game. Actually, there is a bonus game on my list. Joe in chat is actually the bonus game on my list. Split Fiction from the maker of It Takes Two looks interesting. Very true. Yeah, no, that's a
Yep.
co-op game.
It Takes Two is one of those games that I never played. That one game of the year a few years back that I want to play. And it's perfect because it takes two. You literally have to have two people playing that game at the same time. So that's, and it reminds me of the couch co-op experience. We grew up on couch co-op, people of our generation, we grew up on couch co-op, and nothing comes close to couch co-op. And I've said this on stream, like I love streaming because it's like the closest thing we could possibly get to a couch co-op, even though the people are not there. But couch co-op is you just had to be there to truly understand it and appreciate it. I'm sure in today's generation, it's something that's very overrated, but let me tell you, man, there's nothing like couch co-op when you have a whole bunch of your buddies over. You got the food and the drinks going on, or you order some pizza. You got the game going on. You got there's nothing like it. Music, a sleepover, things like that. Those are the times that I miss, and of course the endless amount of times and the ton of money I spent playing in arcades, because I spent a lot of money playing in the arcades, because before Dad passed away, I was getting $20 at a time to go spend at arcades back in the 90s. Not 5, not 1 or 2. I was getting $20 at a time. And I would go right to the token machine. I'd put the $20 bill in there. I'd fill my pockets full of those coins, and they would all be gone by the time I was done with the arcade. And that's something that I used to do every weekend, if not every other weekend. So it's things like that I remember, the experiences that you used to have with your friends coming over and just couch co-oping everything. So, even if it was a single player game, you lose, you pass the controller, or you complete the level. Okay, you pass the controller. Can't beat this boss. It's okay. Let me have this boss. You can have the next one. Things like that. I miss it. And we didn't talk about that enough in this podcast because
we're hey, we're talking about it now. What? Okay. Talk to us about your couch. You did not mention a couch co-op game.
Okay. I'll start one with the first one that comes to mind. So for the Super Nintendo, I had a friend that used to come over and have sleepovers a lot. And every once in a while, when we were lucky, he would stay the entire weekend instead of just one night. So one night he brings over this Super Nintendo game called Demon's Crest. And Demon's Crest was the shit. And he couldn't beat it, right? So he's like, hey, dude, I'm bringing this game over. We're going to co-op this thing. I mean, granted, the word wasn't co-op back in the day. It was, we're going to play this game together. And what happened was, initially, the first weekend he stayed over, we couldn't beat it. The second weekend he came over, he got stuck at the sub boss, right? The second to last boss. And he gave me the controller and he's like, dude, I know what you're capable of. I know you can beat this guy, but I can't. And I'm like, okay, I take the controller, and about 5 to 10 tries later, I beat the sub boss. And then I give him the controller and I'm like, okay, you got the rest of this. You started this whole thing. You're going to finish it. So he beat the last boss. And then once we did, because that game was hard, once we did, we were like jumping and screaming, running all over the house. Like, yeah, we beat Demon's Crest, all that stuff. It was like amazing. We used to go to Blockbuster and rent a game, and we would spend all of our time trying to beat that game before the weekend was over. And just an FYI, almost every time when we rented something from Blockbuster, we were always late. And Mom, bless her soul, paid the late fee.
Oh my goodness. Blockbuster. It's so cool. You're right. We kind of did skip through this part of your gaming journey, but Blockbuster is part of so many people's gaming journey. It's unreal.
Oh, I miss it. If I had Elon Musk money, I would resurrect that shit. I would resurrect it. I miss it. Because it's an event. It's kind of like gaming in the arcades versus gaming online.
Gaming in the arcades versus gaming online.
Yeah, gaming in the arcades, you had to be there in person. You could talk to the person. You can form a relationship with that person, develop a friendship, like a real life friendship that can last you a lifetime. Now, online, it's not quite the same because you may never even meet that person. Plus, they're not there in person with you when you're playing the game. I know for today's generation, that doesn't mean much, but for someone like me who understands like the difference firsthand, it's a big difference, respectfully speaking. So yeah, no, I love, and don't get me wrong, I love the fact that we have easy access to streaming services today to where we can watch whatever we want when we want. But to plan to go to Blockbuster, right? To plan to go there and actually be there in person and get the smell of the room when you walk into that store. To look at the aisles of movies and maybe pick one up that you've never seen before, or being there with your significant other, or who knows, possibly meeting your significant other on there, right? Things like that. You never know. All of that was possible through something like Blockbuster. I mean, if people can get married because they met at a gym, right, which is something you actually have to do because you actually have to go to the gym, like, then obviously people can still form relationships from Blockbuster or going to the arcades and stuff like that, right? So it's things like that that I really miss. Like, I miss those days. Pick up some junk food, go to Blockbuster, go home, stay up all night and just game and try to beat the game before you had to return it.
My goodness. So you want to meet your significant other at Blockbuster?
No, I'm simply
joking,
saying, I'm saying it's possible. I'm saying it's
joking. That's some of the real IRL stuff he wants to do, guys. Some of the IRL stuff. He's a hopeless romantic. Helpless or hopeless. I never know which one to use.
Well, I've been more hopeful recently, so that's all I'm going to say. But I've been more hopeful recently. So
is that the banana?
The banana? Oh, when life throws you a banana, you take it. Oh, it could be. It could be.
Okay.
So I'm more hopeful. But at the same time, it's what I'm trying to say is that it's those experiences that you have. It's the experiences that those in real life experiences that you have that make the difference, that make you appreciate them more and you remember them more, kind of like, you remember the midnight releases. I mean, for people that ever went to midnight releases, I mean, I'm sure most people miss that, right? I mean, I'm sure some don't, but I'm sure there's something about, midnight releases that people miss, for most of us. I know I do. And I can't speak for everybody, but
I want to give the results of our poll. Do you think gaming is headed to a crisis? Who do you think won that?
I don't know the demographic of your chat, so I can't even.
With a resounding 73%. They said yes. Gaming is headed to a crisis.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't. I really hope it doesn't. But it's been such a big part of my life and everything like that. But again, when one door closes, a bunch more open. There's always that. So, when you start to look at life as a whole, even though gaming is a big part of our lives, because we obviously love it, it definitely is possible for something else to come along and fill that void. Even if you don't think it's possible, hopefully within time, life shows you, so.
Oh, well, so couch co-op, Demon. I actually
Oh
looked
yeah,
this game up.
Demon's Crest, Street Fighter
Demon
2,
Crest.
every single Mortal Kombat, Super Mario 3, Mega Man 3, which was the first game that I ever raged. Super Mario Brothers. So there's so many games, just too many to name, but there's so many of them. Siphon Filter for the PS1, which had the best weapon arguably in gaming history, which was the taser.
Oh, you would like to know Silent Cypher. That's his game.
Yeah, and then obviously with Doom and stuff like that, you got the BFG, Bioforce gun, also known as Big Fucking Gun. It's just so many. There's so many. Oh, Gears of War was great. I'm glad Decoy mentioned that. It was one of the first Xbox 360 games I picked up. Obviously, all the Halo games. Yeah, the list goes on and on. I kind of have this. I kind of have this thing where I want to do because when things changed in my life after Dad died, about a year and a half later, so all those consoles that I had went bye-bye. So I kind of would like to pick all those consoles back up some way, shape, or form, and all the games that I had growing up, and just recollect all the things that I lost, and at the same time fill in the gaps that I missed out on from the N64 era. And of course, have a few arcade cabinets in there
You
as
can
well.
do that with Switch Online, by the way.
Yes,
you can do that.
Yes, that's why I'm waiting for the Switch 2. I'm waiting for the Switch 2 because apparently it's going to be announced within the next 3 months, and then hopefully we'll get a release maybe around springtime, and then I'll be picking that up, and then I'll take full advantage. So because there's no need to spend an extra $300-400 and plus games to buy the current Switch, especially when the other one is, I feel, around the corner or down the street. So
it is down the street. It is coming. It is coming.
Yeah,
for sure. Oh my goodness, you made me. Well, I will say this Game Awards did release a couple of co-op games. The makers, we'll be talking a couple of those on my stream coming up. But no, I agree. Couch co-op is like where I gamed with my brother, and I think once that left, or one of us left, then actually, when I think about it, was the kind of decline of my gaming for about 20 years. So I hear you. I hear you.
yeah. And remastered games apparently are making a resurgence, especially on PlayStation side. So that is appealing as well. I've always been a sucker for the God of War games, including the classics. I played the ones that were previously, before God of War 2018, obviously. So I love God of War 1. I love God of War 2. Love God of War 3. You've got of course, Prince of Persia. The OG Prince of Persia made a really big staple in there. So, I mean, there was one point in time when platforming games were at the top of their peak, and it started with the N64 era, and it lived on through the PlayStation 2 era and beyond.
Whoa. Platforming games?
Yes, Mario 64 is a platformer and is the precursor of what we're
Okay,
getting to.
platforming games didn't. Are you forgetting Nintendo? Are you forgetting the game that started Sega with Sonic?
Yeah, but again, remember, in terms of 3D platforming.
Oh, 3D platforming.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're talking
Yeah,
Spyro.
Mario 64. Mario 64.
Cool. Okay.
Like everybody, Mario 64 was so successful that everybody followed Mario 64. So as you can see, if you if you're looking at patterns, right? As we talked about the gaming crisis, there's kind of like a pattern we've seen. Look at the pattern of the past. Everybody followed platformers because of the success of Mario 64. And if you're looking at what happened with COD in 2019, they followed the Fortnite formula, and they're literally duplicating that. And look at where we are today. So there's a pattern that's being followed throughout history, and history does tend to repeat itself. So this is why I think that we are headed in a crisis. It's because of historic facts, not because of necessarily all personal. I'm just saying that I see a pattern. Now, I hope that pattern breaks. I hope that doesn't come to fruition. But again, it's only a matter, if you hang around mud for a long period of time, it's only a matter of time before you get dirty.
That's what I say about syrup. Have you ever noticed that with pancakes and syrup? Like if you mess with syrup long enough with pancakes, you're gonna get it on you.
Oh yeah, nah.
So I don't use syrup when I eat pancakes. True story, because I cannot stand. It's gonna get on me.
Okay.
And so I don't know. I just wanted to add that in there. True, true story. I can't. Like if I order pancakes, which uh now I don't. But if I did, it's no syrup.
Okay, more credit to you. I don't know many people that can do that. A lot of people, they'll put something on their
If it's a
pancakes.
good pancake, it's like a good steak. You don't like a good steak doesn't need steak sauce, and a good pancake doesn't need syrup. That's how
Okay.
I look at it.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, you got to okay, you can put your ingredients into the mix and then make the pancake and then it'll be sweet enough and you won't need syrup. Okay, I see what you're saying.
I'm just saying a good pancake doesn't need syrup.
Right? Well, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying you
It,
can make it however
it's
you want to
all
make it.
yeah, it's all yeah, it all depends on what people consider a good pancake. Some people will say a pancake's not good without syrup, but, other people
Oh,
will say that that's not true because it's like, well, what are you putting in your pancakes or what are you not putting in your pancakes? So, um, yeah, it's all a matter of perspective. So,
yeah. I
but I
don't know.
like them both. And by the way, I see Decoy mentioned waffles. I've always wanted to do this, but I haven't done it yet. But like, you take a waffle, you put a pancake on top, take another waffle on top of that, you got yourself a waffle pancake sandwich. So therefore, you got your waffles and your pancakes all in one.
Oh my goodness. Blueberries go hard in waffles, and I imagine the same in pancakes. They do make those. They do make those. Oh, so would it be a pancake sandwich? A pancake waffle sandwich? Is that what you want to make?
Yeah, or a waffle pancake sandwich. You can do the vice versa. You could do two pancakes with one waffle in the middle, or vice versa.
This guy. Look at this guy being creative, unlike game companies. All right. I'm not. Okay, that's it. That's it. I'm not. No more. No more. I'm not. No more shots at the game industry right now. No more shots. All right. Well, we've been holding everybody down here for about it's almost 2.5 hours. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for staying around. Um, and then Jack we'll talk a little bit after the show. But before we close it down, where can people find you, Jack? And what are you up to?
Right now, honestly, I haven't made a video in forever. All I'm doing is just streaming X Defiant whenever I feel like it, and that's pretty much it. Everything has pretty much been at a standstill. So you can find me on YouTube, the Jack of all trades, with the way it's spelled on here. And that's pretty much it, really. My Twitter is at Jack of all trades, and that's pretty much it. I really apart from me doing YouTube and Twitter kind of being a part of that, I don't. I really, other than that, there's not many social media things that I'm on. So that's pretty much it. Just pretty much YouTube and Twitter. And I still do have a Twitch, but I don't stream on there, so that doesn't matter. So, but yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. My second channel is Jack's Arcade. So, and if I decide to continue on playing single player games on stream, they would be over there. So that's pretty much where you can find me.
And I will try to get your channel here. Give me a second. Give me a second.
Don't forget the apostrophe for Jack's Arcade because you're never going to find it, even with filters, if you don't put in the apostrophe for Jack's Arcade. So
Let me see if I can get this. Let me see if I can get this. I think I got it. This is one of yours. Here we are, y'all. It's going in right now. That is his YouTube channel. So if you like this amazing voice that is the Jack of all trades, you can see more of it, get more of his takes, see more of him playing X to 5 before he dies, and also watching the variety streaming that he'll do after it dies. It seems like Jack, a few trades of purple. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Decoy. We gotta get Decoy on here. We gotta get Decoy on here eventually. But with that, thank you so much, Jack, and thank you all. I know this is kind of like an off day for me. But Jack, thank you for finding the time.
no, thank you for having me. No, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank
I am honored.
Oh my goodness. I am honored. And for everybody else, I will be attempting to complete the order 1886 tomorrow. I had a little bit of a hiccup last week. I've gotten rest. I'm going to sleep at a Holiday Inn, and I'm going to beat the game tomorrow. I am saying it on this stream tonight. I'm beating the game tomorrow. And then afterwards, we'll see. We'll see what I do afterwards. Be a surprise. No problem, Rabalica. Thanks for joining us. Rabalica, I also want to bring you on. If y'all did not know, Rabalica is also a streamer. She's from your home country, Decoy. She's from Canada. So yeah. So but with that, thanks everybody. Thanks Ellis. Thanks Mayhem. Thanks Decoy. Just everybody else. Cowboy for the donation earlier. Ambi, Rouster, it's a whole bunch of people actually were in chat. Joe, I see ya. ISO is here. Shrimp Cup, I see ya. Thanks for stopping by. There's a lot of, I think Urban came by for a little bit as well. Just a lot of, I had Sour Blow, lots of people came by. So thank you all for coming by, listening to Jack's story. You know, again, I always say it's a gaming community. We're all adults, and we got to stick together, especially for us who remember those what gaming used to be. And who knows, we may need to rescue gaming here if we have Jack's future ahead. All right, y'all. With that said, thank you all so much for coming by. And Jack, any last words before I do my little thing?
No, that's it. Thank you all for having me on here. I really like it, and shout out to chat. You know, you
All right.
guys are what you guys make this fun as well. You know, it's that's how it works.
Yep. No, and y'all know what I'm gonna end with. It is I don't care where you game, how you game, why you game, when you game, what you game on, how long you've been gaming. As long as you're gaming, you're good with me. And as always, this is Purple Haze, and the proof is in the plane. All right, thank you all. All right, later. Bye.